Hello, hello, everybody. How are you guys doing? I'm here with Socks. Socks, say hello. Don't be rude. Thank you all for tuning in. I see we've got a couple of 500 people watching, but we only have 200 likes, so please make sure you've hit the like button, and it helps the channel grow, yada yada. Most important of all, tell me what you guys are tuning in from. Let me know in the comments what state, what city, what town. Well, I'm gonna... Here you go, buddy. Yeah, all right, great. We've got Sudan, Sydney, Brazil, Ottawa, Nigeria, Dallas, Bahrain, Algeria, Dresden, Belgium, Slovakia, Ecuador, India, England, Nigeria, South Africa, Sweden, Los Angeles, Texas, Sweden, Chile. It's wild. It's going wild. The list is huge. Socks is trying to get a hold of this sausage right here. Okay, so... thank you guys all for tuning in. It's great to have you. And let's get started. I wanted to talk about the... You good? All right, good. So let's talk about the breaking news story, which is the martial law in Ukraine. Okay, I'm going to play you this video of Putin basically laying it out, and then we'll discuss further.
Обстрелы. Гибнут мирные люди. Неонацисты используют откровенно террористические методы диверсии на объектах жизнеобеспечения. Устраивают покушения на представителей местных органов власти в Донецкой Народной Республике, Луганской Народной Республике, а также в Херсонской и Запорожской областях до их вступления в состав России действовал режим военного положения. И сейчас нам необходимо оформить этот режим уже в рамках российского законодательства. Поэтому мною подписан указ о введении военного положения в этих 4 субъектах Российской Федерации. В сегодняшней ситуации считаю необходимым наделить дополнительными полномочиями руководителей всех российских регионов. Соответствующий указ также сегодня подписан. Высшие должностные лица субъектов Федерации должны уделять необходимое внимание реализации мер, призванных обеспечить безопасность людей, охрану и антитеррористическую защищенность критически важных объектов, поддержание общественного порядка.
So, let me explain what this means, right? And there's an article from Reuters which I thought encapsulated it the best, because this only applies to the whatever you want to call them. If you're Russian, you're going to say this is Russia. If you're Ukrainian, you're going to say it's Ukraine. And if you live in these regions, there's the kicker. A lot will say it's Russia, right? Because a lot of people who live here are ethnic Russians and speak Russian. So this martial law applies to the new integrations into the Russian Federation. So we're talking about Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Luhansk. Okay, so you know Russia basically integrated these into the Federation after the referendums, which took place a few weeks ago, and in Reuters, they go through what this means, actually, this decree that Putin just signed. So they say that in televised remarks to members of his Security Council, Putin boosted the security powers of all Russia's regional governors, all of them, and ordered the creation of a special coordinating council under Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin to step up the faltering war effort. He said that, quote, the entire system of state administration, so not only the specialized security agencies, must be geared to support what Russia calls its special military operation, the war effort, whatever. The published Kremlin decree orders a quote-unquote economic mobilization in 8 regions adjoining Ukraine, including Crimea, which Russia invaded and annexed in 2014. It placed them under a special regime one step below martial law and allowed for the restriction of people's movements. Okay, so that's, again, you see restriction of people's movements. That's one of the main things. And then when they say here that Putin conferred additional powers to all the leaders of Russia's 80-plus regions, okay, to protect critical facilities, maintain public order, and increase production in support of the war effort. Now, you know, the the reasoning in the West is that, okay, well, he's doing this because it's either a response to the Crimea Bridge attack, or it's because he's losing the war. So he's trying to shift all this responsibility on the local authorities. And here, I'll read you this quote from the Reuters article. So look what he says here. Stronsky, who's a former Russia specialist at the U.S. State Department, said the president's orders, so Putin's orders, epitomized Moscow's struggles to implement an effective war plan. That he had a vision and it's gone terribly wrong. And you know, this is kind of like every single decision that comes out of the Kremlin shows that the Kremlin is losing the war. This is the Western narrative, okay? And they were saying this long before the Ukrainians took back Kharkiv and launched the offensive in Kherson. So, you know, this since the beginning of the war, they've been saying these things. And here they say also that Paul Stronsky, who's a Russia expert with the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, said that Putin was placing more responsibility on regional heads, yes, by ordering them onto a war footing, but without making clear what they actually need to do. So, this is stuff that's just coming in now. So I gather that in the next couple of days you'll see more explanation as to what this actually entails, because they're only saying that it limits people's movement. But you know, usually from this kind of well, don't call it mobilization, but when they're basically issuing a decree to all the 80 plus regional authorities, that shows that he wants to up things on a national level. Do you understand? Because the people are saying that, okay, well, he's just doing that in eastern Ukraine, in the Donbass and Zaporizhia to oppress the people in Ukraine. But it doesn't just affect those regions. It affects all of Russia, the entire Russian Federation. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But I'll go more into this as more details come out, because this is just breaking from the last couple of hours. So that's all they've put into the decree. The announcement was not long, and I'll keep you in the loop. So one last thing that I'll just add about Kherson is that there's asking people to evacuate. So again, if we look up here, Kherson is down there, okay? So you can see there's some of the gains, although keep in mind this map is from September 29th, so it's a bit outdated now, but it's still from a couple of weeks ago. You can see the gains they made in Kherson, the Ukrainians in purple. It wasn't as much as in Kharkiv, but nevertheless. Stremusov, who's the governor in Kherson, the deputy governor, is saying that the Ukrainians are going to start an offensive. And he says, quote, "I ask you to take my words seriously and to understand them as meaning as prompt an evacuation as possible." Okay, so they're asking people to just leave because they think the Ukrainians are going to attack. Okay, now, what else do I have for you guys? Oh, by the way, I see we've got about 1,200 people watching. That's great. Again, please make sure you've hit the like button. I only see 400 likes, and we need to boost the channel and help it grow. Let me talk about Elon Musk and Ukraine, okay? Because maybe some of you already know what's going on. So Elon Musk has finally decided to fund Starlink in Ukraine out of his own pocket, okay? So here's the tweet that he put out. He said that, quote, "The hell with it, even though Starlink is still losing money and other companies are getting billions of taxpayer dollars, we'll just keep funding Ukraine government for free." So what is Starlink? Starlink is basically this internet service that his company SpaceX put out. And remember, Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, so he worked on PayPal. SpaceX is a aptly named space company. And one of the products they offer is basically on-the-go Wi-Fi. Okay, so there's a constellation of satellites to provide you internet in remote areas, although you can still use it in major cities that do have internet. But you basically buy the device, it's $400, something like that, and then you pay $50 a month to get internet service. And it's like having Wi-Fi, but from space. Okay, so the Ukrainians they've been depending heavily on this because they don't have communications anymore. They were knocked out by the Russians. So what's been happening is he's been donating some of these units to the Ukrainians. The Polish who are just next door have been buying some of them and giving them to the Ukrainians. And, you have the Pentagon, which has also supplied some of them. But it's very expensive, and I'll get into the costs in a second. But he's saying that he's going to fund it himself, which is very interesting, because a few days ago he said he can't pay for it anymore. And he really angered the Ukrainians. You had a few days where the Starlink was not working anymore. And like I said, the Ukrainian military, not just civilians, the military depend on this very heavily. And here, there was a tweet that he put out on October 3rd, which really pissed off the Ukrainians. So I'll just read it to you. He said that Ukraine and Russia peace would be to, number one, redo elections of annexed regions under United Nations supervision. Russia leaves, if that is the will of the people. Number two, Crimea formally becomes part of Russia, as it is, as it has been since 1783 until Khrushchev's mistake. So he's talking about when Khrushchev gave Crimea to Ukraine. And then the water supply to Crimea is assured. That's number three. And number four, which I suppose would be the most important, is that Ukraine remains neutral, right? And he did this as a Twitter poll where people could vote. Now, you can see 60% of people on this, it's just a Twitter poll. Don't take it too seriously. But the real thing that I wanted to show you is underneath. So you see this Ukrainian diplomat. I think he's the Ukrainian ambassador to Germany. He said, quote, "Fuck off is my very diplomatic reply to you, Elon Musk." Yes, that's very diplomatic indeed. So he pissed them off because Ukraine does not want peace settlement with Russia in this fashion, right? I think it's pretty obvious now that Ukraine, and especially the West, who are funding and backing and training Ukraine, who are bankrolling the war, they want a total defeat of Russia. They're not interested in diplomacy. That much is clear. And so, they started attacking him and saying, "Oh, you're a stooge for the Russians. Who put you up to this? Was it Putin? Oh, you had a phone call with Putin." And then they said that that's the reason the Starlink wasn't working for a few more days. And Elon Musk is lying. He's just pretending that he cannot afford Starlink. Now, someone here on Twitter wrote that Elon Musk's Starlink says it can no longer afford to give Ukraine free service and asks the Pentagon to pay for it. Starlink had been a game changer in the war. This comes days after Ukrainian ambassador told Musk to fuck off. And Musk replies underneath, "We're just following his recommendation." So that was a bit of good tongue-in-cheek there. But ultimately, Musk decided to pay for it. Okay, so this is the latest news that we have. He said, "I'm going to pay for it out of my own pocket." And look at the costs. He says that this article here by the Financial Times was not good. He said the article falsely claimed that Starlink terminals and the service, right, the monthly service, were paid for when only a small percentage had been paid for. This operation has cost SpaceX $80 million and will exceed $100 million by the end of the year. And as for what's happening on the battlefield, that is classified. So, I've no doubt that it's very expensive business. I have no doubt. But remember, at the end of the day, whether it's Elon Musk or other companies, they're making money from this war. So that's not a secret, right? SpaceX has contracts with NASA. They have contracts with the Pentagon. This is nothing new. It predates the Ukraine war. But he's just giving an idea of the costs, okay? Now, I've seen different prices. If you go on the Starlink website, like I told you, the unit in mainland Europe is about $100. A few $100, so 400 euros it was, and then 50 a month, I think. But if you go to this article here, this is from Polskie Radio, they talk about how Poland is funding more than half of the Starlink terminals in Ukraine. And look what they say here. Again, they go through why they're helpful, right? So they help Ukrainian soldiers operate drones, receive vital intelligence, communicate with each other in areas where other secure networks are not available. So down here, though, they say about 85% of the 20,000 Starlink terminals were fully or partially funded by external sources, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Polish governments, SpaceX confirmed when talking to the Pentagon. So Poland's digital secretary of state told Bloomberg that Poland had purchased 11,700 Starlink terminals and 5,000 purchased by the state oil company PKN Orlen. Now, the Polish government says that SpaceX had promised to cover the full cost of the service, so that's the monthly fee. And like they said, it's a $50 per month. Now look at this interesting part here. They say the terminals cost $1,500 and $2,500 to ship to Ukraine. And when I saw it, I was like, I could have sworn it was cheaper than that, and that the shipping was free in Europe. But apparently, it costs more to ship the thing to Ukraine than the actual product itself. I mean, apparently they're shipping them to the Amazon rainforest or something. I mean, $2,500. That's a very expensive postage stamp. SpaceX says that it's paying for about 70% of the services operating in Ukraine, offering all terminals there the best possibility worth $4,500 per month. So again, I think the fact that he wants to pay for this himself is a bit weird. I don't understand what's going on. Here from 2 days ago, so this October 15th, October 17th, excuse me. This is in The Guardian. They're saying that the Pentagon is now considering paying for Starlink. So it's very confusing. One second Musk says, I can't afford this. You guys, the Pentagon, need to pick up the tab. And then the Ukrainians say, fuck you. You're cutting us out on purpose because you're working for Putin. And then Musk says, okay, I'll pay for it myself. And then the Pentagon says, no, actually, we'll pick up the tab. What is going on here? Look, I'm just speculating here, but I'll tell you one thing. I think that if Musk is really going to pay for this out of his own pocket, you know, what does that mean when you're a billionaire and the richest man on earth? But anyway, if he's really going to pay this out of his own pocket, there must be some benefit to it. I'm speculating, but maybe they told him, okay, if you just deal with the Starlink thing for us and you keep the Ukrainians going, we'll give you this contract with NASA in 5 years for this mission. I'm just speculating, but that's how things work in politics. When you're at this level, that's how things work. So I have no doubt that he's benefiting in some other way. People before were speculating that maybe he is just doing this so he can create a monopoly. So he gets the Ukrainian army to depend on Starlink exclusively. And then all of a sudden he says, oh, I can't afford this. You guys need to pay for it. And he jacks up the prices. Okay, I mean, that could make sense. But if he's actually going to do it himself now, there must be some other benefit that he's getting. I don't know. I'll just read you a few more tweets that he posted about Starlink. Because people were asking, why is it so expensive to operate in Ukraine? I bought it for this amount. It was cheaper in my country. So he's been saying things like Starlink is facing relentless jamming attacks and SpaceX relentless cyber war. So far, their success has been limited. Yeah, I have no doubt that's true. I mean, Starlink or no Starlink, when you're in combat, especially in today's day and age, you're going to be trying to jam the enemy's communication, whether it's satellite or it's radio. There's a multitude of ways to do it. It's not uncommon, of course. The Russians would be goddamn stupid not to jam Starlink or whatever the Ukrainians are using, and vice versa, right? Vice versa as well. So people are asking him, are the Russians trying to hack and attack Starlink? And he says, yes, of course, this happens almost every day. They successfully destroyed Viasat in Ukraine several months ago. And then down here, he just kind of shows how the data usage growth in Ukraine is going up steep. I mean, of course, this is already back in May, right? So we're in October now. You can imagine it's much more. But again, like I don't really care for Elon Musk. Like, I'm not some fanboy or something. I think, you know, if you're working with the Pentagon and you're basically part of the military-industrial complex at this point, right? I mean, you're literally helping NATO fund a war overseas. So yes, you are the military-industrial complex. Now, with that said, I really like space exploration. I enjoy all of this, so I think it's cool that, you know, his company has made a rocket that can land vertically and then get refueled and take off and so on. Fine, but those are also the engineers who work for him. It's not him. So in any case, I'm just gonna give you the information and let you make up your own mind about all of this, and let me know in the comments, why do you think that he's suddenly offered to pay for it himself? he wrote somewhere that you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's definitely true, because whatever he does, people are going to crap all over him, right? If he doesn't fund Starlink or give Starlink in the first place, they would say, oh, you're working for Russia. And then if he does give them Starlink and he does pay for Starlink, they'll say, oh, you're exacerbating a nuclear war. And then if he gets the Pentagon to pay for it, they say, oh, you're profiting from the war. So, I mean, I understand he's going to get criticism regardless, but I'm curious what you guys think, why he's agreed to pay for it himself. What do you think is going on here? Let me know in the comments. Okay, so that's great. I see we've got 1,200 people watching, so only 700 likes. You guys better hit the like button. It's good for the channel, helps it grow. Sorry, my mind is like in what I'm going to talk about next. You know the drill. You know the drill. And for those of you who just tuned in, please let me know where you're tuning in from. Which city, which country, which state, which town. Everything is connected to Ukraine. Everything is connected to Ukraine at the end of the day. So let's move on. Okay. Give me 1 second. You guys can see this? All right, I'll break this down for you. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, the congresswoman from New York. She was, I mean, I wouldn't say heckled, but there are anti-war protesters who came to a town hall and confronted her for sending weapons to Ukraine. And let me just play the video and then we'll get into it, okay?
Congresswoman, none of this matters unless there's a nuclear war, which you voted to send arms and weapons to Ukraine. Tulsi Gabbard, she's left the Democratic Party because they're a bunch of war hawks, okay? You originally voted, you ran as an outsider, yet you've been voting to start this war in Ukraine. You're voting to start a thermonuclear war with Russia and China. Why are you playing with the lives of American citizens? You're playing with our lives.
There will be no neighbors if there's a nuclear bomb. You voted to mobilize and send money to Ukrainian Nazis. You're a coward. You're a progressive socialist. Where are you against the war mobilization? He's telling the right truth. You have done nothing. Tulsi Gabbard has shown guts where you've shown cowardice. I believed in you, and you became the very thing you sought to fight against. That's what you've become. You are the establishment, and you are the reason why everybody will end up in a nuclear war unless you choose to stand up right now and denounce the Democratic Party. Will you do that? Yes or no? Okay, simple. Are you going to stop nuclear war? Yes or no? There is no line, because this is bullshit. None of this matters if we're all dead. None of it. You know that. Then let's take it up right now, because this is the only thing that matters. This is the only thing that matters right now. We could be in a nuclear war at any minute, and you continue to fund it. That's what's going on. Why not right now? You're the liar here. Nobody has held you accountable. That's what's happening. And it is time for you to stand up and realize that what you've been saying has been lies. Let your conscience come through for once.
Now you listen here, mister. Don't talk to me about nuclear war. You're being awfully rude. Christ, I can't understand. I can't understand what kind of a response that is. Look, I don't know if she has the slightest clue about the Cold War, about what mutually assured destruction means. I mean, if she doesn't, she shouldn't be sending weapons in the first place, right? But you don't fuck with Russia and poke a bear and then act like nothing is going to happen. Biden himself right? She told everybody to go vote for Biden. She hardly criticizes him. Biden himself said that we are now closer to nuclear war than we've ever been since 1962. Okay, since the Cuban Missile Crisis. That is absolutely true. I agree with Biden. That is true. We are very close to nuclear war, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. I think this is the worst moment since the Cuban Missile Crisis. And you know, she is deflecting and trying to shut people up by saying, "Oh, you're being rude. Oh, there's a line. You need to wait your turn." You know, always deflecting. She is a typical politician. She never answers the question. She will talk about everything from the weather to, you know, Putin's knickers to what jacket this guy is wearing. She'll talk about everything except the goddamn question, except the issue that he raised, right? And she called him rude. No, I think poking the Russians and provoking them and, you know, risking a nuclear war is pretty fucking rude. That's rude, right? That's rude. And then she goes on Twitter and she continues, Look, she goes on Twitter and she starts talking about the interactions that she had, right? Like she's being heckled about how she's supposedly worth all of this crap, and someone saw this on Google. Yeah, I get it. There's a lot of shit on the internet. But you know what's not made up? You know what's actually real? That AOC sent weapons to Ukraine. Look, here are the votes. And it's not just her, right? It's all of these so-called progressives who claim to be on the left, who claim they're anti-war. I'll show you here. This is the vote from not April. So first, I'll show you the one from May, right? This was the 40 billion. The 40 billion which they sent over. So look who voted for this. You got AOC. There you go. She voted for this. Richie Torres, who's a Zionist pretending to be a progressive. Jamal Bowman, same thing. Let's look at Ilhan Omar. What did she vote? Yep, she also voted for it. What about Ayanna Pressley? Oh, Jayapal Pramila as well. Ayanna Pressley. They all voted for it. These supposed progressives. They all voted to send weapons to Ukraine. And then here's the vote from April, so the month before. And this one, this is not as close as others have been, but they still voted for it, right? I mean, this is what they always do. They get together and... here's AOC. 1 second. Scroll to New York. You can see Ocasio-Cortez, Richie Torres, Jamal Bowman, all of them. It's the same gang. And they always do this, right? They'll send weapons to Israel and then they'll pretend to support Palestinians, right? They'll send weapons to Ukraine and then they pretend that they're for diplomacy. Actually, I don't even know if she's pretended to be for diplomacy. Have you ever heard AOC talking about diplomacy? Like, fuck Putin, okay? You say that Putin is nuts and he's evil, so, okay, are you rational? So you're rational, right? I can reason with you. You can level with me. Since Putin is nuts, let me level with you. You don't say anything about diplomacy. Your idea of diplomacy or stopping the war and easing Ukrainian suffering is to fuel the war with more weapons. Your idea of standing up to corporations is giving corporations money? Especially ones that kill for a living, literally make bombs for a living. AOC should be saying, no, we must dialogue with the Russians. We must speak with them. We have to de-escalate the nuclear threat and stop the war now. We have to help Ukrainians now, today, to stop it now. But she doesn't dare open her mouth. You know why? Because she's either a fucking moron or she's complicit. I guess nuking the planet is apparently it's part of the Green New Deal, right? That's her climate policy. Just destroy the rock, destroy the whole thing. She's just like Biden. She's just like the rest of them. You know, these people are dangerous. They're playing with the planet. And that's not an exaggeration. You're fucking with Russia here. Do you understand? They have more nukes and better nukes than you. And if you back them into a corner, they'll use them. Just like when you back them into a corner, they went into Ukraine. You keep saying Putin is crazy. Okay, I believe you. So why do you think he wouldn't use a fucking nuke? Right? According to you, he's crazy, he's evil. So why would he not use a nuke? Why would he acquiesce and not use a nuke? According to you, he is the person who would do that. And your idea of de-escalation is to escalate? You want to blow us all to bits? What the fuck is wrong with you, woman? Like she comes here and says like, oh, you're being rude. You're going to nuke us. You want to talk about rude? Fuck your feelings. And look what a hypocrite she is. She used to do all this stuff and talk about how you have to make these politicians uncomfortable, right? Like here, these are a collection of tweets, right? This is from December 2020. She was saying that they had to put pressure to defund the police. And here she says, quote, "The whole point of protesting is to make people uncomfortable. So the folks who complain protest demands make others uncomfortable, that's the point." But see, this applies to everybody except herself, right? She wants to put on a show for others, but she's not actually okay with you making her uncomfortable about her votes. And of course, I've talked about before how she voted for Israel to send them weapons. And once again, the really dirty thing here is that those votes, when they sent weapons to Israel, barely passed. So if she and just a couple of her colleagues, 4 or 5 of them, put their foot down and say, "No, we're not voting for this," it wouldn't pass. So they have an even greater responsibility to put their foot down during those moments. And of course, I remember this cringy word salad that she put out, this crappy garbage dog crap press release trying to justify why she's sending weapons to Israel and then voting present. She originally wanted to vote no for Israel's Iron Dome, and then she changed it to present because she's a coward and she's scared to stand up to the Israelis. So, And this is in last year, so 2021 July. Like I said, Ilhan Omar, right? Who the Zionists lobby attacked her as an anti-Semite. She gives the Israelis money. Ayanna Pressley, and then AOC and Tlaib voted no. So this is their trick, right? They did this with funding the Capitol Hill Police, with funding Israel. So they'll take turns. You'll have some of them that vote no when they are certain that the bill is going to pass anyway, right? But when it's not certain, when it's not sure that the bill is going to pass, they fucking vote yes to make sure it gets through. So they're working for the establishment, right? When it actually matters, they vote yes. They help these bills get through. That shows you how fucking evil these people are. They are worse than Republicans, because Republicans tell you to your face who they are, right? They show you their ugly side. It's in your face. It's like Trump. He shows you that he's ugly and what he is doing and what he's going to do. But these guys, they pretend to be on the other side, and then they go and do the exact same thing as Trump, the exact same thing as conservatives, all the same. So you will never see her address this question, because she's a wimp, she's a coward, she has no balls, and I don't even know if she meant the stuff that she said just when she got into office. And when I say her, man, I'm talking about all of them, huh? I'm talking about all of them, all these so-called progressives. Jamal Bowman, Richie Torres. I don't even know what that word means anymore. I don't know what this word means anymore. It has no meaning. None whatsoever. Like they are lost now in a sea of establishment hacks. You cannot even tell them apart. They're just floating around there, voting to give weapons to the military-industrial complex, prolong a war which NATO provoked with Russia, and risk nuclear annihilation. Well done. Well done. This is so pro-climate. You're so pro-peace. Yeah, you're so anti-war. Well done. Well done. Please continue. Please make sure Putin nukes us all. Please go ahead. Make sure that the whole planet is killed in one fell swoop. Please. I would love nothing more, right? This is the way. This is the progressive way. Let's do it. These people are garbage, man. They're such garbage. Let me show you something else, man. This is have you guys heard of NAFO? So NATO is North Atlantic Treaty Organization, okay, military alliance and of the West. And there's a meme online where they kind of took the name and spun it into NAFO instead of NATO. Okay, so North Atlantic Fellows Organization. And what does this mean? Basically, it's an online meme slash psyop, whatever you want to call it, where they're trying to portray people that support NATO and support Ukraine as being fellas. Like, they're buddies, they're friends, they're cool people, right? Supporting NATO is cool. Let's go destroy Libya, huh? Let's go sodomize Gaddafi and kill him. How about that? Let's destroy Syria. Let's just bomb them, over some like fake chemical attack that we made up. Yeah? Let's fuck up Yugoslavia. Let's go. Come on, Afghanistan. We're fellas. Right? Fellas. So they just post garbage memes. I mean, literally garbage memes. They're not even good, right? They just post memes online trying to turn I find this funny because they always complain that you had Russia supposedly posting memes during the 2016 election. They posted such good memes that they managed to like trick people into voting for Donald Trump, right? And memes are very bad. And now they're fine with memes as long as they're pro-NATO. Okay, so here's a headline from Washington Post. With NAFO, Ukraine turns the trolls on Russia. Right. Here's the Vice article. Shit-posting Shiba Inu accounts chase a Russian diplomat offline. And so you have a lot of people supporting this. You have, let me show you here. This is Defense of Ukraine. So this is the official Twitter account of the Defense Ministry. And they say that, quote, we usually express gratitude to our international partners for the security assistance, but today we want to give a shout out to a unique entity, North Atlantic Fellas Organization. Thanks for your fierce fight against Kremlin's propaganda and trolls. We salute you, fellas. God, this is so tacky. It's so tacky. It sounds like something from the 1950s. So you have Adam Kinzinger in the U.S. Congress who even changed his profile picture and he put hashtag fella in his name. So this thing has establishment support. Here's the defense minister of Ukraine. He at one point changed his profile picture and said, oh, I'm part of the fellas, right? The NAFO. So, I mean, obviously, this is a psyop. Do you want to know how I know that this is a psyop? I'll tell you how. Because most people on planet Earth fucking despise NATO with every inch of their body and every fiber. Okay? Most people on planet Earth who are rational and have brains and see the news dislike NATO. They fucking hate it. You know why? Because there is no Soviet Union anymore, and everything NATO has done since the Soviet Union is destroy other countries, right? So no one likes NATO, and you're telling me now that all of a sudden, it has like this popular support online? No, this is obviously a psyop, right? It's a psychological operation. It's designed to make you think that there is broad support for something and then by extension trick you, convince you into liking it. Because you're like, hey, it's the tribal mentality. That everybody's going there. That thing must be good, right? No, it's not good. It's very dirty. And I want to show you something more interesting, okay? Because the Vice article, which I just showed you here, they talk about the creator of this, okay? So who came up with NAFO? So they say it all started back in May when an artist named Kama started designing the little guys because he thought the Shiba Inu looked goofy. Okay, so this is his name. All right, and it turns out that this guy who came up with NAFO is an anti-Semite. Right, so he was posting on Twitter anti-Jewish things. He was making fun of the Holocaust, and number one, that's obviously very disgusting and very egregious. And number two, it makes me question why people are throwing their support behind this. Like, what does that mean now? Like, you're fellas with someone who makes fun of the Holocaust? What the fuck is that? What is that? Why are you fellas with something created by someone who makes Nazi jokes? How is that funny? Why would you want to be fellas with someone like that? And then the third issue is that, we keep hearing there are no Nazis in Ukraine. And again, no one is saying most Ukrainians are Nazis. Obviously, they're not. That's ridiculous. What people are saying is that you have small pockets of very intense and potent Nazi supporters, and they wear Nazi insignia. And it's not me saying that. It's The Guardian, the BBC, NBC. You can pick any mainstream outlet you like. From 2014 up until 2022, they were all talking about how you have Nazis in Ukraine, right? Who are disciples of Bandera, this guy participated in the Holocaust. He killed Poles, he killed Jews, and was an anti-Semite. And so this person who's created NAFO, so it was called Kama. Look, he's making fun. These are old tweets that people pulled up from what he wrote, and he's making fun of Jews, and I think that's disgusting. I think that's extremely disgusting, and it really makes me wonder when people are saying that there's absolutely no Nazis in NATO or in NATO. Who are basically in cahoots with NATO, and there are no Nazis in Ukraine. And granted, this guy's not Ukrainian, he's Polish, according to the Vice article. But look what he said. This was his response a few days ago, October 15th. He said that these very helpful individuals have combed through my timeline and found some overly edgy and incredible, inappropriate, quote-unquote, jokes that I made a couple of years back to fit in just so I can mess with people further. None of these are acceptable, and I'm just, what is this? Like, that's not even an apology. This is not even an apology. you made fun of the Holocaust to fit in. Who the fuck are you trying to fit in with? Heinrich Himmler? Like, what is this garbage? What kind of an apology is this? It's not even an apology. And again, like I'm looking at this photo that was posted here by the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine. This is the official Twitter account with the blue check mark and everything. And this guy's wearing a fucking bracelet with a swastika on it, right? You can't see it down here, but I'll blow it up for you like people did in the comments. There you go. So this guy's wearing a swastika on his bracelet. And then the funny thing is you have people who say, no, that's not a swastika. You're just not seeing properly. And then you tell them, well, what about the other symbols on there? Those are also associated with the Nazis. You know, they always have like, they always move the goalposts, but a lot of these symbols, and they say, you know, they'll of course say, well, no, it's not Nazi. These things are Norse. They come from Norse mythology. They're Viking. Yeah, fine. But, you know, you live in 2022. We're in the 21st century. The Nazis took that shit and they co-opted it. So it has a different meaning. We're not in the Middle Ages anymore. And of course, you know, they won't have that. There's always some kind of excuse. And remember, there are many instances where the NATO, not NAFO, NATO, the military alliance, on their official Twitter account, they posted pictures of people in Ukraine with fucking Nazi insignia and emblems on their shirts, on their patches, and they had to delete them. This happened multiple times. You know, on Victory Europe Day, so that's May 8th of this year, Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, on his official Telegram channel, and I showed this to you with the receipts, they posted a picture of a guy with a fucking death's head, a Totenkopf. That's the skull and bones that the SS, the Schutzstaffel, had in World War II. The Nazi SS. And then they deleted it quickly because people are pointing out why, like, there are too many coincidences for this to be just a coincidence. You understand? So I find that's very disgusting that people just, they sport Nazi symbols and act like it's not a big deal. No, it's a very big deal. It's a very big deal. And I want to read you a tweet here from Kim.com. He said that considering all of this evidence, the swastika bracelet debate about General Zaluzhny, so here, the guy in this photo, which I showed you, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Considering all the evidence, the swastika bracelet is a sideshow. The Nazi problem in Ukraine is significant and well documented. No CIA botnet, no US government propaganda, and no fake news media can change that. Thank you, Internet. He basically had done a whole thread where people posted evidence of Nazis in Ukraine and so on. And again, I want to be very clear. That doesn't mean you should go around and start calling anyone who's Ukrainian a Nazi. That's disgusting. The problem here is that you have NATO, you have the West siding, allying themselves with Nazis and then pretending that it's not happening. And we saw this with the Contras in Central America and Nicaragua. The CIA and the West were basically, especially the United States, were backing the Contras in secret. And then we saw this with Al-Qaeda and ISIS. You know, Al-Qaeda and ISIS only exist because of the CIA and the West. And so they get in bed with these vicious terrorists, Nazis, Al-Qaeda, whoever it is, because it suits their military and foreign policy objectives. And then if you call this out, because you shouldn't be, allying yourselves with Nazis and Al-Qaeda, then they say you're talking propaganda. And then in a few years, the truth will come out. And then, of course, they'll act like, oh, well, it's not a big deal. That was just 40 years ago. It is a big deal. It's a very big deal. And I'll just kindly remind you, there were a couple of resolutions in the United Nations General Assembly against Nazism, and the only two countries that voted against them were Ukraine and the US. This in 2018. Why would you vote against that? Why do you oppose a resolution condemning Nazis? Apparently the US and Ukraine do, or did, right? So I'm very concerned by all of this, and I think it's so hilarious that they're trying to portray NATO as some peaceful organization where you have fellas. No, man, fuck you. I know what NATO is. I've I've lived in Pakistan. I've lived in Syria. I've been around the world. My parents been around the world. And a lot of the destruction is because of NATO. And a lot of the evil, the last 3 decades of war, is because of NATO. It's NATO, they're the one at the helm of it. And trying to pass this off like it's some defensive organization, that's disgusting. There's nothing defensive about NATO. You could maybe argue that during the Cold War. Fine. We're not in the Cold War anymore, at least not the one until 1991. The last 3 decades, there was no Soviet Union. Why does NATO still exist? To defend against an imaginary foe? No, it exists because they wanted to do whatever they want in Kosovo, do whatever they want in Afghanistan, in Serbia, in Syria, Iraq. This is what it's about. It's about projecting Western power and Western influence. And these people are fucking murderers and war criminals, and they are responsible for most of the destruction around the planet. They are not fellas. I want to show you something here which is going to make your head explode, because this is so insane. I mean, just absolutely insane. I couldn't believe. Hold on, let me pull this up. By the way, I see we've got 1,500 people watching. Please make sure that you hit the like button. I would really appreciate it. It will help promote the video and let people see it. So, what I'm about to show you is going to make your head explode. Even till this minute, my brain still can't believe that he actually said this, but he did. This is the Ukrainian foreign minister. The Ukrainian foreign minister admitting on camera that Ukraine blew up the Crimea Bridge. With the ISIS-style truck bomb. No big deal. Terrorism is fine as long as NATO does it. So you remember those 2 Russians who have a YouTube channel? They tricked the British defense minister. They tricked George W. Bush into doing Zoom calls with them. They tricked the Ukrainian foreign minister, and look at what he said. Just watch.
Если, например, вы меня спросите, кто взрывает в Крыму или в Белгороде что-то, то, в приватном общении, насколько оно в Зуме может быть приватным, я вам скажу, что да, это мы. У европейцев sanctions...
Yeah. I'm not surprised, but thanks for the confirmation. I'm going to play this again.
Или в Белгороде что-то, то, в приватном общении, насколько оно в Зуме может быть приватным, я вам скажу, что да, это мы. У европейцев sanctions fatigue в чистом виде. Их нужно заставлять. Им все сложнее обеспечивать поддержку санкций со стороны Венгрии. Венгрия становится все более агрессивной.
Look, man, don't you understand? Hungary is not playing ball, so we just had to blow up a fucking bridge, and kill 3 civilians. That's the way it is, right? You got to do what you got to do. Sometimes a truck bomb is the answer. That's just how it is. I love how he's trying to rationalize it. Listen, man, if someone else did that, you'd call it terrorism. Straight up terrorism. Okay? When someone drives a vehicle and blows a goddamn bridge up, it's terrorism. Okay? When they blow up a pipeline, it's terrorism. But, when NATO does it, well, we don't know. Now you know. That you heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Literally, straight from the horse's mouth. I don't know what other confirmation you need. And already, when it happened, I showed you Zelensky, the Ukrainian president. He filmed a video and he said that there's smoke. There's lovely weather today, this Saturday, but there's smoke bellowing out of Crimea. He was basically making fun of the truck bomb. That there are plumes of smoke coming out of the blast, and the destroyed bridge. So. The Ukrainian SBU, the intelligence, they posted a statement. Everybody admitted it was them. But here you can see how in private, how he speaks, right? I'll show you this video. This is the Russian President Putin, and he explains how they were able to carry out this attack.
Констатировалось, что, скорее всего, этот так называемый груз, точнее сказать, взрывчатка, взрывчатое вещество были отправлены морем из Одессы, но точно не установлено, с помощью зерновозов это сделано или нет. Это вопрос. Ответа на него пока нет. Но если гуманитарные коридоры для поставки зерна в беднейшие страны, хотя оно туда и не идет, но под этим предлогом была организована эта работа, выяснится, что гуманитарные коридоры используются для совершения террористических актов, то, конечно, это поставит под большой вопрос дальнейшее функционирование этого.
I just wanted to pause it right there because this is a very important point about the grain corridor. Do you understand what he's hinting at? The grain corridor. I'm going to play it again.
Гуманитарные коридоры для поставки зерна в беднейшие страны, хотя оно туда и не идет, под этим предлогом была организована эта работа, выяснится, что гуманитарные коридоры используются для совершения террористических актов, то, конечно, это поставит под большой вопрос дальнейшее функционирование этого коридора.
So he's saying that the current Russian position is that they don't have the evidence yet, but basically the explosives, they were transferred, under, they were made to look like cargo suited for the grain corridor, and it went to Georgia and then Armenia, and then it was brought to Crimea, and that's how they did it. And why is this a problem? I'll tell you why it's a problem, because basically Ukraine, and I don't know who helped them, I wouldn't be surprised if it's the UK and the US. They excel at sabotage. If they've done this through the grain corridor, it's very bad, because the Russians are gonna say then, okay, no more grain. And then he goes back to what we were hearing for the last months. Oh, the Russians are so evil. They won't let the grain leave the ports, and they're starving people in Africa, and they're starving people in Yemen, and it's all the Russians' faults, of course. Well, look, man, I'm pretty sure that any country that would sign up for this kind of deal and then see you using the corridor to smuggle explosives is going to shut down the corridor. What do you think they're going to do? What do you think they're going to do? Any country would do that. And now, let me show you. This is from Euronews. They say that the Kremlin is saying any extension or expansion of a deal allowing Ukrainian grain exports via the Black Sea would depend on the West easing sanctions. Russia says the impact of sanctions on logistics, payments, shipping, and insurance prevent it from exporting fertilizers and chemicals like ammonia, and that easing those restrictions was a key part of the deal brokered back in July by Turkey and the UN. UN officials met on Sunday, October 16th, with Russia's deputy foreign minister, and the deal, which is up for renewal next month, so in November, did allow for fertilizer exports from Russia, but Moscow has complained that these are still obstructed. So this is similar to what happened with Nord Stream, right? They said that, look, if you don't ease sanctions, we're cutting off the gas. And they waited like 6 months, but in the end they did it. And I've no doubt that they're, if they can prove that it was done via the grain corridor, they'll shut that down too. And that's not good. That is not good for anyone, because like I said, Ukraine is a major wheat exporter, so are the Russians, but Ukraine especially, right? Isn't their flag the Ukrainian flag, the blue is for the sky and the yellow is for the fields of wheat? It's in their flag even. They're a major wheat exporter, and it's going to be so easy for them to say, oh, look, Russia's being evil, they just want to starve the planet, because that's what Putin does. He wakes up wanting to destroy the planet, and they're not going to tell you that they actually abuse this humanitarian corridor. And it reminds me of Syria, right? Because in Syria, you constantly have this battle in the UN Security Council about where the UN and humanitarian aid is going to come from. The Russians who back the Syrian government say that, look, this is the Syrian government. It's in Damascus. And if you are bringing aid into Syria, it's got to go through the government in Damascus, because they're the government. And of course, the West, who want to topple the government, and who are occupying 1/3 of Syria, they say no. The aid has to come through the border crossing with Turkey. And again, remember, Turkey is a NATO member. And Turkey has been caught red-handed smuggling fighters, so foreign fighters, into Syria through the humanitarian corridors, smuggling weapons, smuggling oil out of Syria, right? Because that's good for them to get it cheap, even if it meant buying from ISIS or buying from whatever nut job had the oil fields that day. So there's so much evidence. There's so much evidence, ample evidence, overwhelming evidence that the humanitarian corridors in Syria were abused. They were meant for humanitarian aid. They were meant for UN to get supplies in and help civilians, and they were used and abused. And now you're seeing the same pattern again. And they're playing this game with the Russians. I don't think this is good. And I think that the Ukrainian foreign minister admitting that they blew up the Crimea Bridge, wow. You heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Let me play the rest of the clip, okay?
Если, например, вы меня спросите, кто взрывает в Крыму или в Белгороде что-то, то в приватном общении, насколько оно в Zoom может быть приватным, я вам скажу, что да, это мы. У европейцев sanctions fatigue в чистом виде. Их нужно заставлять. Им все сложнее обеспечивать поддержку санкций со стороны Венгрии. Венгрия становится все более агрессивной.
Орбан, какие у них вообще есть дорожная карта? Вот что может сейчас есть?
Мы ждем новые санкции, мы будем бороться, я уверен, что они будут. И мы
какие по планам, как вы думаете?
Не, из больших санкций можно говорить только о газе, и я хочу еще о отключении от SWIFT новых российских банков. У нас есть один большой сектор российской экономики, который остался неприкасаемым. Это компания Росатом и атомная энергетика России. Я считаю, они тоже должны быть заведены под санкции. И нужно очень серьезно смотреть на то, как функционирует российская военная индустрия, и продолжать там тоже применять санкции для того, чтобы обрезать им доступ к каким-либо оставшимся технологиям.
Но сами вы как думаете, это все реально? Это как сейчас ведет себя Европа? Что вот между нами, вот что вам говорит чисто Боррелл, когда вы видитесь один на один, или другие министры, они верят в вас или нет?
Man, I find this so hilarious. These guys are Russian, but they're pretending to have an American accent, so the guy believes they're U.S. ambassadors.
Они говорят, нет, вы не победите. Как они оценивают это все?
Они верят, у них...
They're talking about the EU foreign minister, Joseph Borrell.
Раздвоение личности, потому что, с одной стороны, они видят, что Украина действительно может победить, но они не могут себе представить поражение России.
There you have it. And here's from the same guys who run this channel when they tricked George Bush into a call.
We are fighting for our independence.
Well, I'm very proud of you.
We are also pilots like you.
There you go, yeah.
Oh man, that guy's such a clown. He's such a comedian. A dangerous one at that. In any case, damning evidence from the Ukrainian foreign minister. Ouch. You know, I thought the British defense minister, that call was the worst. This is way worse. You know, they should have pushed him about Nord Stream 2. Like, just to get it on tape. We know who did it. It's obviously the West. Obviously NATO blew up Nord Stream 2. But it would have been nice to have that confirmed too. In any case. Speaking of Nord Stream 2, I'm going to drop a bombshell on you because I've not seen this reported anywhere in English. And I, for the life of me, cannot understand why. Because it's so insane. It's truly insane. Before I continue, though, I'm just going to say we got 1,700 people watching. Please make sure you hit the like button. It's the tiny thumbs up below the video. And we've got a nice super chat here. This is from the Crazy Puppet. It's good to see you again, Crazy Puppet. It says... Yo, great catching you live. Likewise, I'm glad you're here. It's been a while. You guys sent some other donations. Let me just read them quickly to you. 1 second. We have one from Life. Life says, Salam alaikum akhi Samir from Sweden. Love you. Thank you very much. Ahlan wa sahlan. It's good to have you. Chima Madu says the U.S. is about to invade Haiti as all of this is unfolding, but since there is no one there with blonde hair and blue eyes, CNN and NBC don't say a word. Exactly. I'm going to do a separate one on Haiti. I want to bring a guest on to talk about that, because that's, again, something you're going to see on page 10, which they've buried, and it's very unfortunate. You know, Haiti, they've been screwing around with Haiti for hundreds of years. They've been screwing with that place, screwing the people there, whether it's the UN, whether it's the US. The very, very, very tragic. Alexandra says, thank you for speaking out about Serbia. We appreciate it. No need to thank me, but I'm grateful for your comment. You know, Serbia is also, again, another unfortunate victim of NATO. You know, it's disgusting what they did in Yugoslavia. It's disgusting. There's one thing I agree with Blinken about, which he said at the UN, that you know, when you start doing these kinds of things, you open the door to other countries doing them. And what he did not say, though, is that the United States opened the door. So when they're complaining about Russia doing this and that, even though it's not even the same thing, but you know, who did these things first, right? Who's doing illegal annexations and bombing countries and killing civilians? You know, if Russia's doing that, the West, NATO has done it 1 million times before and larger than Russia. So, you know, on what basis are you lecturing the Russians? How can you be taken seriously? How can there be a peace settlement? You know, and you don't even respect diplomacy. Like Richard, what is your take on some journalists all of a sudden changing their stance and posting on anti-Iran regime posts on social media? Look, man, I don't know who you're talking about specifically, but I'll tell you one thing about Iran. And I was talking earlier with Lee Camp, so please go check out the interview with him. We spoke about Iran, and there are a couple of things I thought I'd repeat here, or you know, touch on here, which I have already a couple of weeks ago. But nevertheless, you know, right now you're seeing in the news this mantra, this slogan that the regime is going to fall. You know, there have been protests for 5 weeks. There's that Iranian woman who competed, I think it's where did she compete? Was it in Korea? Without a hijab, so she removed her veil and competed, even though it's against the rules. And, you know, basically people who are saying that the protests are not dying down, they're actually getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, that first of all, that's not true. You know, the protests were really in the first couple of days. What's happening after that, I think you've had 24 police that have been killed. And I don't even know how many wounded, but basically it's turned from protests into riots. Now, the thing here is that, you know, there's nothing wrong with protesting. And Lee and I were talking about this. You know, I think he said that he supported every, you know, police protest there ever was. But let me just kind of draw a comparison here. You know, when we think about George Floyd protests in the U.S., those were enormous. I don't know any protests anywhere that were that big, right? So you had all 50 states. You had people protesting because of George Floyd being killed by the police. And that was on video. Like, you actually had that on tape. It was proven in court. He was killed by lack of oxygen with the knee on his neck, which, by the way, the Israelis do to the Palestinians all the time. And that's how he was killed. And no one was saying, the regime is about to fall. Let's go do regime change in America. Although, again, I think a lot of people in the comments right now are going to make a joke and say, no, that would be great. That would be lovely. Okay, but I'm saying seriously, no one actually advocated for regime change in the U.S., right? No one was saying that, you know, Donald Trump should be taken out and, you know, we're going to put in some foreign-backed puppet or whatever. You know, there was no talk about this. It was just accepted that, okay, in countries, people protest when the cops do dumb shit, right? Or bad shit, evil shit. Now, the thing is, with Iran, where is the proof? Like, the only evidence we have, the only evidence, actual evidence, is a video of her collapsing and then being carried away. There is no evidence of her being beaten. And I'm not saying she wasn't. I'm just telling you what I have. Unless one of you has a secret video, please send it to me. But I don't have that. I only have what is out there. And there is no evidence of that. Now, let's say, okay, they actually did do it, right? Let's assume that the Iranian security forces, they actually killed her and they beat her to death, which would be wrong, which would be heinous. Why does it now become about the hijab? The police killing an innocent, poor young woman is not the same thing as let's get rid of the hijab. And if you're in the West, like, and you're not even Muslim, and you have no connection to this region, on what basis are you talking about the hijab, right? You don't have to support it, but don't start acting like an expert. Even in the Middle East, even inside the Ummah, in the Muslim community, people don't agree with each other 100% of the time. You'll have one Islamic scholar who might say hijab is mandatory, but the burqa is not. And then another might say, actually, neither are mandatory. And then one might say both of them are mandatory, right? So even among Muslim scholars, these are people who are literally experts and specialized in theology and the Quran. They don't even agree with each other all of the time. So on what basis are you telling people who are Muslim not to wear hijab, or that this is oppressive for them? Many Muslim women would completely disagree with you. They would say, no, this has nothing to do with oppressive. This is self-respect. I put this because it's my religion, and so on. So I don't like this Western arrogance of like telling people in other countries and people of different religions what is good for them and what their religion is. Now, I'll tell you my point of view is that, but I'll also tell you extra. My mother's side of the family are Syrian Christian, so there's a minority in Syria, and in Syria it's secular. Okay, there's separation between religion and state. And in Syria, you don't have to wear hijab. You can do whatever you want, and that's fine. I am not against or for it. It's not my business. It's just not my business. But I'm not going to go and start telling people like, oh, well, look, in Syria we do it this way, so you guys should also do it that way. No, especially, in Syria, if you're Christian, you don't go and start telling Muslims what, how you're lecturing them about Islam, and Muslims don't come and lecture you about Christianity. It's not ignoring each other. No, I like coexistence instead of tolerance. Because tolerating is like you're accepting something that begrudges you, that annoys you. No, it's not that. People don't annoy each other. There's coexistence, and that's logical because these religions come from Syria. They come from the Levant. Judaism, Christianity, Islam literally were birthed and came from this area of the world. So obviously you're going to have people from all of these ethnic groups and religious groups, literally dozens, too many to count. And they all live with each other peacefully, and I love that, right? And you have Christian minority in Palestine, Christian minority in Iraq. We are not persecuted. We are treated with respect and like equals, and everything is lovely. But again, just because Syria is secular, I'm not going to go and start telling people in Iran their business. And then the thing here is that with these protests and the Western narrative, they go from hijab to... So first it was the security forces killed this poor woman. Let's get rid of the hijab, and now let's get rid of the government. Regime change. I thought you'd say that. Of course they want regime change. That's how who benefits from regime change? Israel benefits because Iran does not recognize Israel. Iran supports the Palestinians. Iran supports Hezbollah, which kicked Lebanon, which kicked the Israelis out of Lebanon, and then beat them again in 2006, and is stronger than ever today. Iran supports Syria, which also does not accept Israel. Israel is illegally occupying Syria. Iran supports the Yemenis, the Houthis. Iran is supporting the Hashd al-Sha'bi, the PMU, which is the popular mobilization units in Iraq. Iran supports Venezuela, right? Iran is cool with China, is cool with Russia. And, who does this anger? The Israelis. They don't like Iran's foreign policy. If you think for 1 second that people in Israel care about women in Iran, you are smoking something heavy, man. They couldn't care less about anyone in Iran. They don't care about women in Iran. They don't care about children in Iran. They don't care about men in Iran. They don't care about Iran. They want to get rid of Iran because Iran actually stands up for people who are oppressed. Do you understand? Iran does not tolerate Israeli, Zionist, and imperialist Western bullshit. That's why they're trying to get rid of Iran. They've been trying to do that since 1979, right? Because they're, before that, they had Iran under the jackboot. The British were taking the oil. The Americans were taking the oil. They had and giving it weapons and making it the regional policemen. They literally did a coup in the country. They did a coup in 1953 because Mossadegh nationalized the oil. So that's no-go, right? So the West and Israel are the ones who profit the most from regime change. They want to get rid of the government in Iran because of the foreign policy of Iran, not because of the hijab. If you seriously believe that this is about women's rights, you're an idiot. And again, I don't like this term like, oh, only women in the West have rights. Like, what are you implying? That people treat women like animals in everywhere that is outside the West? That's fucking bullshit, and you know that. You know that. I'll tell you another thing. These tweets that they're putting out on Israel's Twitter. Here, I'll show you. This is the official Israeli Twitter account, okay? And look what they're posting here. This is nonsense propaganda. Get ready for some cringe, man. I'm sorry. Get ready for some cringe.
We support Iranian women. We support you.
Israel, love you.
The women of Israel will always stand with you.
We will always remember you, Mahsa.
We will never forget you. We will never forget you. Every woman deserves to be free. You are in our hearts.
Israel love you. They'll never forget you. Go get your goddamn colonizing ass back to Europe, motherfucker. Stick your goddamn business out of Iran. You got no business there. They're trying to interfere in Iran since day one. They despise Iran. If you care about women in Iran, why are you making sure they can't buy medicine for their children? Huh? Why you have them under your sanctions regime? They don't care about people in Iran, period. They don't care about them in Israel. They don't care about them, or occupied Palestine. They don't care about them in the West. And if you actually think they do, you're an idiot. You are an idiot and you don't understand anything about geopolitics. And just because there are internal issues, because again, I'm not saying everyone in Iran loves the government. Of course they don't. There is no country on earth where everybody just loves the government. You always have people who dissent. You have people who are not okay with the government for whatever reason. But every time someone protests in the West, in France, like you're seeing today, in the last days, in Germany, and you're going to see a lot more because of the sanctions blowing up in their faces. When people protest in the UK, when they protest in America, do you suddenly start screaming for regime change? What is this? People are not allowed to dissent in their society without you coming in and sticking your fucking hand in the cookie jar and trying to get rid of the government there for your foreign policy goals? What is this? Let people be. And they always do this, right? So, in Syria in 2011, they were saying, oh, the police killed this boy, and then they killed another boy. And they made it about, like, those couple of individuals, and that this supposedly sparked, it was the spark for the revolution. No, it wasn't. Number one, I don't even know if that's true. I'm not saying they're angels in the Syrian government, that there are no angelic governments. But even if it's true, how do you go from... this government killed one of its own citizens, and that was bad, to, hey, let's give weapons to Al-Qaeda and just start, pumping in millions of dollars to overthrow the Syrian government. What escalation is that? Yeah, that doesn't give you the right to do that. So, I'm not surprised that there are people who just don't get it with Iran, because, and it's disappointing, because you have people who are, they're capable of critical thinking skills. They call out the media and they call out the West with a lot of things, but then when it comes to Iran, they'll start repeating the same State Department talking points and Foreign and Commonwealth Office talking points. That's very disappointing. You should know better. If Iranians want to make a change in their own government and they want to make a change at home, then let them do that, and they will do that if that's their destiny and if that's what is written, right? But the State Department, the FCO, the West coming in and meddling, that is not grassroots. That is not the Iranians. That's somebody else. And we know this game because they played it in Syria and they played it in lots of countries. I'll just end by saying one last thing. Any news outlet or magazine or newspaper or journalist or reporter or politician who calls governments in Syria and Iran and Venezuela regimes is themselves a propagandist, okay? They are themselves propagandists and part of a regime. Because when you say, oh, that's the Biden administration, right? That's the Obama government. And then you say that's the Iranian regime, the North Korean regime. You're going to sit there and tell me that what you have is not a regime? No. You're using that term selectively on purpose to condition people into buying your horse shit about Global South. So you can justify sanctions, war, drone strikes, counterintelligence, and so on. intelligence activities, and then, meddling in that country's internal affairs. That's why they do it. They try to condition you. Like, oh, look at those barbarians over there with their regimes. The people over there are so stupid, right? They're all brainwashed and sheep, and they don't understand, and we have to come and teach them. The white man has to come and educate them about what's better for them. We must civilize them. This is their mantra, right? This is where it comes from, and we ain't having it. So fuck off. Here, let me tell you a bit about Nord Stream. Actually, I was reading your guys' donation, so I'll get back to him in a bit. I just want to keep going. God, that Israeli video was so cringe. That was so cringe. I apologize for that. Okay, where are we? Here we go. So, I didn't see this reported anywhere in English. Okay? This is an article from Berliner Zeitung, from Germany, from Berlin, and it is absolutely staggering. So let me walk you through this, because it's about Nord Stream 2, right? Everyone is wondering who blew it up. Well, we already know who stands to gain from this. It's certainly not Russia. Russia paid for Nord Stream 2. They had, they were making lots of money from gas and oil sales. There's literally no incentive. But let's see what's going on, because remember, Nord Stream goes from Russia to Germany, but Denmark and Sweden also have a role to play in the investigation, because it goes through their exclusive economic areas. This is Sarah Wagenknecht. She's a German politician in the left, in Die Linke. Okay? And she's I suppose what you might say in English is a progressive, right? I mean, she's certainly better than most people in her party. And she asked the German government, she asked specifically the foreign ministry and the Habeck, he's the economic minister. She asked the Ministry of Economics and the foreign ministry about who blew up Nord Stream 2. Okay, she asked them, because this is normal. You can see parliamentarians in the UK or wherever asking their government questions, and sometimes they'll give them an answer and sometimes not. And guess what? They didn't tell her. So she asked, do you know if there were any NATO ships in the area of Nord Stream 1 and 2 when they were blown up? And the German government told her that their security relationship with other countries, their intelligence sharing, supersedes her right to know as a German politician and parliamentarian. Right? So basically they're telling her this is too secret for you to know. Even you who are a government, not minister, but she's in parliament. So they wouldn't tell her about NATO ships being in the area. And then the other question that she asked if they had any signs, any warning signs about an imminent attack, okay? And if they actually did anything about that. And they also gave her the same answer. No, we can't tell you because it's too delicate to talk about. It would compromise our security relationship with other countries and the well-being of the state, Staatswohl, right? So the whole article's in German, but basically I'm giving you the main points here. And she also asked them about whether there's an investigation going on, whether there is an ongoing investigation, and if they have, found a culprit, a suspect, any leads. And for that one, they gave her an answer which was very limited. They said that actually, no, there is no ongoing investigation on site, which is weird because, where else would you investigate, right? Like you would have to go on site. Whether it's in Germany, at the end of Nord Stream 2, or it's in the sea of Nord Stream 1. But they said there's no on-site investigation and they don't have any leads. Why would the German government conceal this information? Doesn't this strike you as very bizarre that this is not mentioned anywhere in English media? This whole article, all of this, that she, Sarah Wagenknecht, asked the government who blew up Nord Stream 2 and they won't tell her. Nowhere. I only saw this here in Berliner Zeitung and some other German outlets, but it's not reported in English. This is really weird. And, the Danish government, just yesterday, this is October 18th, they said that, quote, powerful explosions, unquote, were at the origin of Nord Stream 2. So the investigation of the 26th September ruptures, that's a nice way of putting it, of Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines in Denmark's exclusive economic zone are being handled by Copenhagen police and Denmark's Security and Intelligence Service. So the Copenhagen police said that it is still too early to say anything about the framework under which the international cooperation with Sweden and Germany will run, as it depends on several actors. I'll get into this part in a second about the joint investigation. But they're saying that Swedish journalists were given permission to image one of the Nord Stream explosion sites using an underwater drone. Caution, again, listening to the impending wave of explosions, experts on Twitter. Well, we don't need that because we have actual seismologists who gave their take, and Danish, Swedish, Polish, German governments who all said it's a blast. So there you go. That you can see how it's ruptured, right? I mean, it's leaking methane gas into the surface. I think it's stopped now, but at least when the blast happened, the leaking methane gas, which is like 30 times worse for the environment than CO2. So the Swedish sources claim that the hole is up to 8 meters long and could only have been caused by explosives. See that? Only could have been caused by explosives. So this confirms, what we heard before when the attack itself happened, right? You had all of these governments, all of these seismologists and scientists that arrived at the same conclusion that it's not possible this was a natural event. There are too many blasts, too far apart, and it's very obviously man-made. These were acts of sabotage, and so these investigations now, after a couple of weeks, are yielding the same result. The thing is, though, Sweden is refusing to hold a joint investigation with Denmark and Germany. Okay, so just let me clarify what that means. They are investigating the Nord Stream attacks. They are cooperating with them. Okay, they're cooperating together because, once again, these blasts happened and affect all of their territories. But they are not running a joint investigation with them, which I imagine implies full disclosure on intelligence matters and so on. So they're just working with each other a bit, but it's not every country is basically running its own investigation. Denmark, Sweden, Germany. So Sweden doesn't want to do that because it would have to share information from its own investigation that it deemed confidential. You see? That's why they don't want to do a joint investigation. Quote, this is because there is information in our investigation that is subject to confidentiality directly linked to national security. So this is kind of the same thing that the German government told Sarah Wagenknecht, that, we just can't do this and divulge this information to you because we have, relationships with other countries. And this makes you think of course, like Five Eyes. Five Eyes is the US, the UK, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, and they share intelligence with each other. I think they're really just sharing it with the US. But the idea is that, if one country that you're allied with gives you some information, or they are implicated in this event, you can't share that because it's too sensitive, right? For example, let me just give you an example, and I don't think this is far-fetched whatsoever, but if it's the British who did it, or the Americans, and it very, very likely is, because they were holding drills in that exact area, they have the technology to do this, and they have the motive. They might have relationships in terms of sharing intelligence with Germany, with Denmark, with Sweden, and other security arrangements, and were these countries to divulge who was behind it, the British and the Americans would say, okay, screw you. We're cutting off your support for this. We're cutting this off. They're just not going to do it because it's not in their interests to upset the culprits. And think about what that means, because if Russia did this, which the mainstream media are saying, why wouldn't they rush out and say it was Russia? Even Biden refused to do it, right? He was asked, do you blame Russia for this? And he just dodged the question because this lie is so big, no one actually dares to utter it because it's lunacy. The only people that are accusing Russia of doing it are the mainstream media because they're dogs, they're lapdogs, and they do the bidding of the governments. They're a mouthpiece for the government when the government can't say it, right? When the Israelis go and bomb Syria, they don't say we bombed Syria. They say we refuse to comment, and then the media go and justify the bombing for them. You understand? So once again, we have confirmation this was man-made. It was sabotage. The information about who did this blast, who sabotaged Nord Stream 1 and 2 is so sensitive that Wagenknecht was told to go away by her own government, right? Even though she's a serving politician, parliamentarian. The Danes, the Swedes, the Germans won't do a joint investigation because the information is so sensitive they can't share it with each other. And they have so far not accused the Russians of doing it, because who knows what the Russians have on them, but and how the Russians would respond. It's just the lie is so big, they can't do it. And if just think logically, these countries, do they care about Russia? Does Sweden secretly care about Russia? Does Germany secretly care about Russia? I mean, they do to a certain extent, but the governments I'm talking about, right? They don't. They're not going to cover for Russia. They would actually gladly come out and say it was Russia if they actually had any proof, but they don't. And that's why they refuse to divulge any information, because they're hiding something. And we all know what they're hiding. We've got 2,000 people watching. Welcome, everybody. Please tell me where you're tuning in from, and hit the like button if you haven't. Oh, it's good. Actually, we have the same number of likes and viewers. Perfect. Well done. I'm proud of you guys. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I'm just going to read some more of your donations and questions before I move on to the next segment. Shana Bell says, the U.S. government has no right to talk about democracy or freedom in Iran. Hypocritical considering the U.S. doesn't have either. That's what I'm saying. You can't get on your high horse and start lecturing others in that situation. The Crazy Puppet says, have you seen recent replica of Jesus? No, I have not. What are you talking about? Is that... I'm not in the loop. I gotta Google it, maybe. Puppet Masters Fool says, Klaus, Soros, and others are not American, so isn't the Biden lot really supported by some foreign power in sorts? Just thinking about regime change. Well, I mean, the way I view this, I see it's more of a capitalism issue than anything, right? Because if you look at the behavior by the French, by the British, by the Dutch, by the Portuguese, by the Spanish, by the Americans, we're talking about the current period we live in and the last centuries leading up to it. These are the dominant powers, the European, Western colonial powers. They all kind of behave the same way. So it's not a question of what nation it is. It's a question of methods. You can see this transfer of power. The British were number one 100 years ago, and then now we're not anymore, and we kind of handed the torch over to the Americans. But the same behavior continues: the plundering, invading, colonizing, stealing, killing, murdering, abusing, exploiting. And I mean, it's not far-fetched at all to say that a lot of this is capitalism, right? Lima says, what is the name of your cat? Also, do you watch the Duran, and what's your opinion? Douglas Murray's take on the Ukraine conflict and Russia and Putin. Sucks. And I'm not too familiar with the Duran, but I watched some of their videos. It would be nice. I'm cooking something. I want to do it with them and some others. So I won't spoil it yet. But my opinion on Douglas Murray's take on Ukraine conflict and Russia and Putin, I haven't seen it. So give me a second. I need to write down what Crazy Puppet and Lema told me so I can check these out later. Hold on. Go. Replica of Jesus? What are you talking about? Peter says, thank you from Sweet Home, Alabama. Getting you and Galloway live in the same day makes my week. Would appreciate any thoughts you have on Imran Khan. Well, thank you very much for the kind words. Wow. Imran Khan. This guy, they shanked him. They put all these knives in his back and they kicked him out of government. They ousted him, despite him having more popular support than any Pakistani politician in the last decades. I mean, this is the rallies that this guy holds, right? I don't know anyone. I don't know any politician inside or outside of Pakistan that has crowds like that. It's not just one rally or two rallies. It's every night. He goes to Karachi, he goes to Peshawar, he goes to Islamabad, and he's whipping up these enormous crowds, innumerable amounts of people. I mean, it's really crazy. This guy's insanely popular, and they got rid of him because they're scared. they made sure that he's kicked out of government, and now they're trying to accuse him of terrorism, accusing him of the wildest crap, just to bar him from running for election again. That's what it's about. They want to. They're killing him because he's a fierce political opponent. And again, keep in mind, these people that oppose Khan, they're nobodies. They're nobodies. No one even knows their names. Okay, I mean, obviously you have some famous political families in Pakistan, and you know, the new Pakistani prime minister is you know, his own family is. Give me a second. There's a new story with Khan. I just want to say that, you know, the Sharif family are also well known, but they don't have the same popularity as Khan. And I saw a news story that they hacked his Twitter account for Imran Khan, and they bugged his phones as well, right? So someone here, let me show you what's going on. He posted about this on Twitter, right? So there were these audio leaks that took place, and they had bugged his home and his office. I don't recall exactly if it was his home, but I think it was his office, because he was talking about how, you know, if they've bugged me, they can bug the other prime minister, and it's basically a threat to national security, right? So here's the stories from October 11th. So Imran Khan to move court for JIT probe into audio leaks. Okay, so as he announced his intention to approach courts for a probe into the audio leaks emanating from the Prime Minister's office. There you go. So it was his office. Former Premier Imran Khan on Monday said the date of his much-typed long march was shrouded in mystery because of ubiquitous phone tapping. So in a series of tweets, the former Prime Minister, whose audio clips have emerged over the past 2 weeks, said he would approach the courts for the formation of a joint investigation team, JIT, to probe these audio leaks, which featured conversations that occurred at the PM's house and office. Okay, so I was right. It's both. Quote, audio leaks are a serious breach of national security as they call into question the entire security of the Prime Minister's office and the Prime Minister's residence. Imran Khan claimed that the secured line at his residence was also bugged when he was the Prime Minister. Quote, we intend to go to court to establish authenticity of the leaks and then form JIT, so the task force, to investigate which intelligence agency is responsible for the bugging and who is leaking out the audios, many of which are edited, doctored. Christ, I mean, I really don't even know what to say. He said which intelligence agency. That's the thing. You don't even know if it's in Pakistan or it's American. Could be both. And you know, in Pakistan, beautiful country, right? By the way, amazing country. I lived there for a couple of years as a child. I miss it very much. But in Pakistan, you know, the military. If you want to have a successful government, you need the military support. It's a bit like Egypt, right? You have to have the support of the people, and you have to have the support of the military. And the intelligence services in the security service in Pakistan are very, very, very good, very, very smart, and very potent and capable. But I don't know if they're the ones who bugged his phone. I really have no clue. Someone obviously, you know, if someone's doing this, they're obviously a state actor, right? Because you have to consider, well, it's like Nord Stream 2. Who can do this? Who has the, you know, the technical knowledge and the manpower and the energy and resources to carry this out, right? Who would do this? Who is the motive? So you have to think of it this way. It's absolutely an intelligence service. I mean, whether it's Pakistani or outside, that's the question, because Imran Khan was saying that there are people in Pakistan, rival politicians, who are working with the Americans to get rid of him, right? Like, he's talking about, of course, those who've defected from the opposition and, defected from the coalition to the opposition, and then they gave the required votes. It's just a handful of votes to oust him as prime minister, right? So he accused them of working with the Americans, and he had a letter from the Americans saying that you better, you know, just walk away peacefully, or we'll get rid of you ourselves. I'm paraphrasing. And, you know, he threatened to publish the letter, but then the courts classified it. So, again, that points to it being real, because if the letter is a fake, why the hell would a court classify a fake letter? So, you know, that's also very shady. And the Americans made no secret of him. You know, they didn't like that he went to Putin when the war started. Literally, the day it started, February 24th, he was in Moscow, and he bought grain. He bought wheat and gas, was it? Basically, either oil or gas. But he bought 200,000 tons of wheat and energy from the Russians, and of course, this being in the Kremlin, shaking hands with Putin, buying his stuff instead of sanctioning him, this is a faux pas. If you don't get with the program, then they're going to come after you. And he, of course, was criticizing the war on terror, which is another big NATO project. So he had to go in the eyes of the Americans, right? And his rivals. This is how they always do it. They'll come and find people in the country who also don't like a certain individual and then work with them from the inside and get rid of them. It's what they do. It's a shame. Like I told you, he's very popular in Pakistan. Extremely popular. And they're afraid of him running for office. So that's why they're trying to bar him from re-election because of these ridiculous, absurd terrorism charges. Terrorism charges? For what? And then these audio leaks, so they're trying to humiliate him, and they're doctored also on top of it. They're not even legitimate. So, some very, very dirty games are being played against Imran Khan. Let me show you what's going on in... once again, we come back in a way to Ukraine, but also not. Because everything that happens in Ukraine happens outside of Ukraine as well. I'm talking about the ripple effect, right? So, okay. Let me show you one thing. Just give me a second to set this up. I hear Socks is whining now to come in. Sorry, man, I'm working. You gotta wait. Okay, let's close this out and oh, man, hold on. Before I forget, please, because we were talking about Iran earlier, let me just show you this clip. Okay, I have a clip for you. You're gonna laugh. Let me just show you this, okay? Let me show you this clip from Obama. Barack Obama, he's giving his take on Iran and the protests, riots happening there.
When I think back to 2009, 2010, you guys will recall there was a big debate inside the White House about whether I should publicly affirm what was going on with the Green Movement, because a lot of the activists were being accused of being tools of the West, and there was some thought that we were somehow going to be undermining their street cred in Iran if I supported what they were doing. And in retrospect, I think that was a mistake. Every time we see a flash, a glimmer of hope, of people longing for freedom, I think we have to point it out. We have to shine a spotlight on it. We have to express some solidarity about it. That doesn't mean, by the way, that the administration is, that a U.S. administration shouldn't be taking in a bunch of other equities into account. They have to. A president has to, right? So I continue to believe that the Iran nuclear deal was a really important thing for us to do to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Had we not had that in place, I think Iran would have had a nuclear weapon by now.
Well, look how well it's gone since we pulled out.
Exactly, right? So you still have to make decisions, often very difficult, about are there places where you do business with a government that is repressive.
So Obama is basically saying, I wish I meddled more in Iran. When he said the Green Movement, he's talking about these contested election results in 2009 in Iran. Now, of course, when we say contested by the West, right? Every time there's an election in Venezuela or Syria or, any country that the United States despises, before the election even happens, they'll come and say, oh, that's a fake election, We would know. We set a lot of them up. So, that was the same deal back then. And I find it funny that he's saying that it was a mistake not to come out and give more support. He did. He literally did. Look at this article. This is from Reuters from 2009. And it says the U.S. State Department speaks to Twitter over Iran. The State Department said it had contacted the social networking service Twitter to urge it to delay a planned upgrade that would have cut daytime service to Iranians who are disputing their election. So confirmation that the U.S. government had contacted Twitter came as the Obama administration sought to avoid suggestions it was meddling in Iran's internal affairs, as the Islamic Republic battled to control deadly street protests over the election result. Twitter and Facebook have been used as a tool by many young people to coordinate protests over the election's outcome. Barack Obama said that he believed people's voices should be heard and not suppressed in Iran. Look, man, I'm sorry, but the State Department, the Secretary of State is appointed by the President in the United States, okay? So the Secretary of State does what they're told, usually. So don't mistake this for 1 second as, oh, it's the State Department acting on its own. No. The State Department does what it's told by the White House, okay? And this idea that, they're not meddling in Iran, of course they were. Of course they were. I'm literally showing you an article from Reuters. It's not me saying this, is Reuters. Of the United States government going to big tech, where they have a monopoly, and using big tech, using Twitter, as a tool for regime change in Iran. They didn't want Twitter to do scheduled maintenance where, sometimes a website will go offline for a few hours so engineers and developers can fix bugs on the website and so on. It's normal, right? But the U.S. government told Twitter not to do that and to keep Twitter online so people in Iran could still use it to dispute the election. I mean, this is not the biggest example of it, but usually this is fascism. When you have corporations intertwined with the state, that's a hallmark of fascism. What concerns me here the most is in addition to the fascistic, tendencies here, there's also clear indication of how the United States was meddling in Iran back then. This idea that the Obama administration wasn't is ridiculous. Of course they were, and this is just what we know. These are just some of the things we know. I bet you anything you like, they did way more behind the scenes. For sure, there's no question about it. Don't think this is a game, man. There's people, it's their job to come in the morning and find ways to fuck with Iran and Syria and countries the U.S. is trying to regime change. It's their job. And they're good at it, right? But nevertheless, despite 40 years of trying to overthrow the Iranian revolution, they failed. And it comes back down to the foreign policy we talked about. That's the real crux of the issue. And, Obama coming out now and saying, I should have done more to screw with Iran. I don't know. It's just so typical, right? They're all neocons at the end of the day. They're all neoconservatives. All of them. They don't change. You could take what Obama said here and remove the name, and I wouldn't know who said that. I wouldn't know if that's Blinken. I don't know if that's John Bolton. I have no clue because they all sound the same. You know what? Speaking of Iran, let me go to Ukraine with this. Okay, so you guys know that Iran's been sending all of these drones to Russia, and again, I love the Western press, right? At first they said, look at the Russians. They have no money. Their army sucks. They have to go buy drones from Iran. You know those crappy drones the Iranians make? Those drones that suck, that don't kill people like ours do? And then when the drones are being used in Ukraine, and now all of a sudden they're saying, oh my God, these drones are devastating. We got to sanction Iran. They're destroying the country. Which one is it, man? You said they're useless pieces of crap, and now you're saying they're too devastating? Yeah, I'll show you that, because after the Crimea Bridge attack, which the Ukrainian foreign minister admitted was Ukraine was behind that. I played you the video. The Russians, they started striking energy infrastructure inside of Ukraine, and they've been using more and more of these drones that were provided by Iran. So we're talking about the Mohajer and the Shahid. Okay, so these are not even Iran's best drones. They still have even better ones. But let me just show you here. This is an article from Euronews. They say Ukraine war, Kiev is hit with kamikaze drones, sanctions, and Russia's acute logistical problems. Right. So they're saying that I think when the number was 43, they used 43 of these drones in one day. Here, I'll go through that in a second. This is one of the drones, yeah? So the Shahid 136. And This is a video released by Iran a while back. It's not from Ukraine. But yeah, I just wanted to show you what's going on here. So the EU is planning to sanction multiple Iranian individuals and entities within the coming days over arms sales to Russia. Okay, so the move comes amid reports that Russia has used Iranian drones to strike civilian targets in Ukraine and may soon receive precision-guided Iranian missiles. And this is, of course, according to U.S. intelligence cited by the New York Times. They're saying Tehran is also sending drone trainers to Russian-occupied Crimea. Officially, Iran has not explicitly admitted that they're giving them drones. They're giving them drones. Okay, some people will say, well, that's not a, sometimes they're using a variant of it. Yeah, but it's still a variant of an Iranian drone, and it's no secret that they cooperate together. But the move here that they're trying to implement is another round of sanctions on Iran. Okay, so they want to hit 5 Iranian individuals and 3 entities. The new penalties would come on top of sanctions already agreed on Monday against Iran's morality police. So you guys remember these protests, riots that are happening in Iran? They said that it's the morality police who killed Mahsa Amini. And then it went from, let's get rid of the hijab, and now let's get rid of the Iranian government. How convenient for the West and Israel. But they slapped Iran with sanctions over that on their morality police. Which, by the way, is funny, right? I don't hear them sanctioning Saudi Arabia's morality police. And now they're sanctioning Iran over arms sales. And I find this funny because NATO, whether it's the French or it's the British, the United States, they sell weapons all the time. Speaking of Saudi Arabia, they sell them tons of weapons, right? How much did Obama sell them? $115 billion worth of weapons, including cluster bombs. And then Trump did about $300 billion, right? They sell weapons all the time. And if they don't sell them, they'll go and steal them. Like they get rid of Gaddafi, take his weapons and give them to terrorists in Syria. So, now they're mad at Iran giving the Russians drones. I honestly don't even know if they were necessarily given, because let me explain this. The Iranians and Russians have a partnership that predates the Ukraine war. There's nothing new. And someone, I think it was in the Iranian government, a spokesperson said that their military arrangements and partnerships predates this. So I don't know if he was trying to say that basically they've been giving the Russians these drones or parts of them before the Ukraine war started, and so that basically this has nothing to do with Ukraine. But the other side comes around and says, well, okay, if Iran really is giving them drones, then they're a co-belligerent, and we have to go after them as if they are Russia. I mean, this is really funny, All of a sudden now they care about human rights, and they care about international law, and they care about arms sales and drones, and wow. I wish the EU would have sanctioned the US for all the people they've murdered with drones. They hit weddings, they hit funerals. They even, under Obama, the United States drone striked the funeral of a guy who was killed in a drone strike, killing more people with a drone. I mean, it's sick. It's barbaric, And when they say kamikaze drone, let me explain how this works, because these are basically drones that are it's like a V1. Okay, the Germans in World War II, they developed the first rocket engine, and the V1, which looked similar to this, not exactly, but similar. It would basically, they'd give it just enough fuel, so it would go from the French coast to London, and then it would run out of fuel based on that finite amount, and then it would just crash randomly somewhere and kill people, right? My grandmother was blown up by a V1 in World War II. She survived, but it hit her, right? And it's indiscriminate. It's not controlled. It just lands wherever, and you hear the engine dying because it runs out of fuel, and it explodes upon impact. And then, they came up with the V2. The V2 was the first ballistic missile, and, what the Americans did, they basically went and recruited all these Nazis after the war and got them to work on the space program, right? Even after all they did to London with the V1 and V2s. So, I mean, this drone technology is not new. But the thing is that's special about what Iran is doing is that Iran's been under sanctions for decades. And remember, up until the war in Ukraine started, the Iranians were the most sanctioned country by the United States in the world, right? 3,000 sanctions. And again, I'm not saying they didn't suffer. They definitely suffered. Sanctions make people suffer. Civilians, everybody. And my point is, though, despite the sanctions, look what they were able to do. They developed ballistic and cruise missiles that are so advanced that Mike Pompeo and Donald Trump and the Israelis were screaming about, oh, why wasn't this included in the nuclear deal? Because it has nothing to do with nuclear weapons, but okay. So they're trying to, back out and, renegotiate a deal they never followed in the first place. So that shows you Iran's defense research, its defense capabilities are very, very potent, very good. And the drone technology is another aspect of that where they've excelled and exceeded, and they're able to produce these at much lower cost, right? Especially with something like this where it's one-time use. You don't need the drone to fly back and refuel and so on, even though the Iranians have that technology as well. But with these kinds of drones, they're able to produce them very cheap. And when you want to win a war, especially a war of attrition, you need to be able to produce things quickly, cheap, and effective. Right? I always give the example of the T-34 Russian tank and the German Tiger tank. German Tiger tank, beautiful piece of engineering, right? 88 millimeter cannon. It's ridiculous. All modern tanks look a lot like the Tiger tank. Now the T-34, very cheap, right? And the thing is, though, it's quick to produce. So if you can produce more Russian tanks than the Germans are able to produce Tiger tanks, well, guess who's going to win? The Russians. And the Tiger tank is more beautiful. Yeah, it's very sophisticated and advanced, but the parts are difficult to replace. It takes longer to train the crews to drive and operate the tanks. The first ones especially would break down a lot. So what's the point? The Russian T-34s don't break down like that. T-34s are nothing, in cost compared to that. So it's in a war of attrition, you need that. And I find this so funny that they're laughing at the Iranian drones. And guess what? The Iranian drones, number one, are effective. They get the job done. They're told to go hit a target, and they hit it within 5 meters. Okay? Within 5 meter radius. That's the margin of error. They're that precise. 5 meters. And they don't cost much. And Russians are able to make their own variants. Meanwhile, you've got these the Americans, they have Global Hawk, they have Reaper, they have all these different surveillance and attack drones. How many do you think the Ukrainians are going to get? How long do you think it trains them to operate it? Honestly, this, for me, the Iranians giving Russia drones, for me, is a very, very important point in the timeline of the Ukraine war. Very important. And for many reasons. Number one, because this is definitely going to help the Russians in a way. And we saw this while the Ukrainians were making advances in Kharkiv and doing this counteroffensive in Kherson. What was the immediate result? They said, oh, Ukraine's winning the war. They took back all this territory. But then at the same time, we saw the Russians start using the Iranian drones. Okay? And then that became a very grim reality. And then after the Crimea Bridge attack, they're using even more of them. Okay, so here's from the New York Times. This is what I was talking about earlier. You can see here, Ukraine's Air Force said that Russia had fired 43 Iranian-made drones on Monday, but 37 were shot down by air defense systems. The mayor of Kiev said that 28 drones were spotted over the city, resulting in 5 strikes. The Ukrainian Air Force scrambled jets to chase and shoot the drones, while some were shot down by troops who fired into the air. The targets included the headquarters of Ukraine's national energy utility and a municipal heating station. I don't believe this. I don't believe this figure at all, because the videos that I've seen of Ukrainians firing at the Iranian drones, they were doing it with rifles, which basically means that they're shooting at air. Again, just always pay attention to the stories, because they don't add up. They tell you these drones suck, and these drones are being shot down, and then they tell you the drones are devastating the city. They're killing civilians. Well, which one is it? Are they shitty and you're able to shoot them down in droves, or are they actually doing they're doing damage? You can't. These are contradictions. Okay. And these bloated figures, I mean, you can't, honestly, even from the Russian side, I would not trust figures about deaths and casualties. I would not take them at face value, because you're in a war. You don't even know what the actual numbers are. You have estimates. So remember the Saudis and Aramco is the Saudi oil company. During the F1, the Formula One, earlier this year, there was a drone strike, right? So, this was from the Yemenis, and they hit here, I'm trying to pull up a picture. It was back in March, right? We talked about this. This is from NPR. So Saudi Formula One race will go on despite a Houthi missile attack near the track. This is very embarrassing for the Saudis. You know, they want to be, they want to appear prestigious and, oh, look, we have all these futuristic buildings in Dubai and in Saudi Arabia. We build cities out of the desert. You know, we have so much money. We're these lovely oil sheikhs and we can buy anything and build anything and come host the 2022, or it was 2020 actually, but because of the pandemic, the 2020 expose over here in Dubai, and here the world's first flying car, the Formula One Grand Prix. You know, they want to gain a lot of prestige on the international stage. They want to look good. And this was embarrassing as hell, because while the Formula One race is going on, you got a goddamn drone from Yemen, all the way from Yemen, that hits the oil. When we're talking about the oil, Aramco, oil is the belly, is the belly of the Saudi economy. That's where they get all their money from. They got nothing but oil. So that was extraordinarily embarrassing. And what did everybody say? It's an Iranian drone, right? Every time the Houthis, the Yemenis, are able to kick the Saudis' butt, which is a lot these days, they're winning the war, doesn't mean they have it easy, you know? But every time they do that, they say, oh, look, it's Iran backing them. Iran is behind, whispering over their shoulder. It's Iran. You know, so, again, contradictions. The Iranian drones are devastating, but they also suck. That's weird. I've never seen something so devastating suck so bad. What a contradiction, man. And now they're trying to sanction Iran again. So I don't know what they think they're doing, but, you know, you guys never sanctioned Canada. You never sanctioned Britain. You never sanctioned Germany, who, by the way, Germany cheated to sell weapons to the Saudis through a legal loophole. They would export them to Italy and then from Italy sell them to the Saudis. So they're still giving them weapons to kill people in Yemen. But, you know, they've done all of these countries, Britain, France, US, UK, they've all sold weapons to the Saudis, which they've used to commit genocide. No one sanctioned them for that, right? And now they want to sanction Iran for some drones. They're doing that because the drones work. If they were shitty, they would not bother with sanctions. And if sanctions weren't devastating, they wouldn't use them. They are devastating. So this is their way of punishing Iran. And the protests also, these protests in Iran, riots, right? They've killed, I don't know how many, 2 dozen plus police. And again, I'm not saying people don't have grievances in Iran against their government. Guess what? Every country does. People in every country have grievances with their government. But there's a lot of foreign influence, and it's funny how these protests started right around the same time when Iran gave the Russians drones. You need to understand in international politics, you know, in this domain, a lot of stuff, it goes unsaid, okay? Actions speak louder than words, especially in diplomacy, especially in international relations, and of course, there's nothing diplomatic about this, but this is how they move. You fuck with us, we're going to fuck with you, right? So they perceive Iran giving weapons to the Russians as a threat, and then they go and screw with Iran at home, which they try to do anyway, but, you know, the timing is important, it's interesting. I think there's a connection there. I'm not saying it's the only reason, but it's interesting to observe it, right? And I find it difficult for Iran to come back to the nuclear deal, although, sorry, Iran is in the nuclear deal and it never left. Iran never left the nuclear deal. It's the Americans who left. But I find it difficult for Iran to continue to remain in the nuclear deal and to believe the Americans at their, you know, to take their word and believe them that they'll come back in and lift sanctions when they are still slapping Iran with sanctions. The whole nuclear deal is about sanctions relief in exchange for a limited nuclear program. And we're not just seeing no sanctions relief, we're seeing more sanctions, right? So they haven't just left the sanctions that Trump put on Iran, they're adding to them. They keep adding to them, right? They've added these ones because of the morality police, and now because of the drones. Once again, man, Biden, Trump, it's all the same. All the same. All the same. And I told you this. I told you before he got into office, he's just going to take everything Trump did and just run with it, either keep it or make it worse. All of it. And I don't know why the Iranian government would believe that the Europeans, because remember, this is Brussels too, huh? This is Brussels too. It's not just New York. It's not just Washington. It's not just the Americans. It's the EU who themselves are in the deal. Remember, the EU is a party to the nuclear deal. This does not bode well. I mean, they're slapping you with sanctions on one side and then pretending they're going to lift sanctions. Nah. I wouldn't trust them 1 second. The only one that's actually stuck with the deal is Iran. Iran has receipts from the IAEA saying that it respected the deal. And what did it get in return? This shit. So you see once again the double standard, how it's okay for the West to sell weapons and give weapons to whoever they want. It's okay for them to have military alliances. It's okay for them to invade countries. It's okay to sanction people, to commit, economic terrorism against other countries, murder them, murder civilians, maim civilians, imprison civilians, kidnap them, torture them. It's okay. All of this is fine. All of this is fine if you're a Western country. But if you're not, we're coming for you. All right, I have a lot more to go through with you guys, but I just need to, I need to drink something. So give me 1 second, all right? I'm just gonna put the, give me 1 second. I'm just looking here on. Ah, that's lovely. We got some of you who signed up on Patreon. I appreciate that. I'll play you a crab dance in a second. I'm just going to get something to drink and we'll continue. The next one I have for you guys, very important, and you're going to like this a lot. Okay, so I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Go get something to drink. Go to the, go do your potty break as well, and we'll be back in just a minute or two. Okay? In the last couple of months, you've seen them sanction Russia, and what has that done? It's driven the value of the ruble up. The euro and the dollar are down. Russia has made even more money than it was making before because the Europeans are still buying the oil. The rest of the world is still buying the oil, and the price of oil and the price of gas have gone up. So even if Russia's selling less oil, before I forget, I wanted to go drink something, and Claudia reminded me. If you like my work and you want me to continue doing my work, please consider supporting the show on Patreon. You can donate $2 a month or $1 a month, anything you like. But remember, no pounds and no euros, because they're worthless. I'm joking. On Patreon, and there's, of course, PayPal and CashApp, and I'm just going to leave all the links below. You just do your thing, okay? So thank you guys, all of you. We're trying to get to 900 people on Patreon. We're almost there, and I appreciate your support very, very, very much. So let's continue in a minute, all right? Claudia's posting the links in the chat. Thank you very much, Claudia. All right, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. In the last couple of months, you've seen them sanction Russia, and what has that done? It's driven the value of the ruble up. The euro and the dollar are down. Russia has made even more money than it was making before because the Europeans are still buying the oil. The rest of the world is still buying the oil, and the price of oil and the price of gas have gone up. So even if Russia's selling less oil and less gas, the fact that the price has gone up means that Russia's making more, there's more revenue, okay? So they've come up with a new plan. This is their new brilliant plan. The crude cap applying from December 5th, and the refined products to follow from February 5th, 2023. If you want to go and move Russian oil, you need to get a ship, and you need to get that ship and the cargo insured. The idea is that they will refuse to move your Russian oil unless you bought it at a price per barrel that is below this threshold. I can already tell you one thing, the Chinese are never going to go along with this price cap. A price cap on Russian oil without the price of oil skyrocketing. It's just not happening, man. The EU now wants to replace Russian gas with Israeli gas, right? There's nothing better than some stolen Lebanese gas. And the Israelis are trying their best to block the nuclear deal because, if sanctions are lifted on Iran, Iran is free to sell its oil and gas. Remember, Iran has the biggest gas reserves in the world after Russia. And what do the Israelis do? They straight up just send a giant ship to start extracting the gas. I mean, this thing is a behemoth. Nasrallah, who is the Secretary General of Hezbollah, he threatened them that if they extract any gas before they solve the maritime border dispute, there's going to be a huge response. If Israel messes with Lebanon and starts extracting gas before this issue has been resolved, they're going to strike the Israeli gas rigs. And no company is going to want to come anywhere near that because it's a war zone then. Let me show you this opinion piece I found in The Guardian. The ruble is soaring and Putin is stronger than ever. Our sanctions have backfired. Wow, you don't say. Took you 5 months to realize that? Western sanctions against Russia are the most ill-conceived and counterproductive policy in recent international history. The reality of sanctions on Russia is that they invite retaliation. Putin is free to freeze Europe this winter. He has slashed supply for major pipelines such as Nord Stream 1 by up to 80%. The chief beneficiary is none other than Russia, whose energy exports to Asia have soared, driving its balance of payments into unprecedented surplus. Man, seriously, did I not say exactly all of this months ago? Perhaps, after all, we should stick to war. I don't agree with everything in this article, but the premise that sanctions have failed, absolutely. I mean, this was clear from the beginning. And we're back, oh boy. Yes. I want to tell you guys a story, and I'll tell you after the next segment. But I want to get through that one first. Thank you very much for your tip, super chat. Mehdi, I appreciate that very much. And we have one from Vasily Koman. I appreciate that very much. Thank you guys for supporting the show. I should do more Q&As, actually. I just realized I haven't done one in ages. Actually, I don't remember the last time I did one. It's been too long. Would be fun, you know, because sometimes... actually, what's going to happen is we will start the Q&A and then I will end up talking about politics anyway. So, same deal. So again, thank you guys very much for supporting the show. I appreciate it. If you would like to donate, or you can send me a note or a question too, right? A lot of you actually do, and I like answering. So here's the PayPal QR code. You can just open your phone's camera and scan it, and it will take you directly to the link, whether it's Venmo or Cash App. If you have a question or comment, or you just want to support the show, I appreciate it. And I'm trying to see if anyone joined on Patreon, because that means we play a crab dance. Let me see. I actually have too many emails. I can't see anything. But thank you for those of you who are, because we're trying to get to 1,000. Right now, we're 850 or something, which is already amazing, which is already nuts. So thank you to everyone who's donating on Patreon monthly. And you know what the best form of support is? Hamburgers. No, I'm joking. But the best form of support is sharing the videos, because, you know, a lot of this stuff pisses me off. Like these topics, they're annoying, they're upsetting. You know, it's a lot of the news is not good, unfortunately. And you know how they always put this like beeping, suspenseful music when you turn on the news to like stress the crap out of you? Yeah, we don't do that here. But you know, the reason I do this is because it's important to counter mainstream media as much as possible. And it's not just about countering them. Even if they didn't exist, you know, we'd still have to have something that opens people's eyes. You know what I mean? So sharing the videos, it's not just about supporting the channel. It's about educating people, opening their eyes, because a lot of these topics, they never talk about them on the news, or they talk about them in an extremely dishonest manner, you know? And I know this firsthand, man. Like, there is so much wrong with the news, you know? I see it every day. I do this for a living, unfortunately. You know, I watch what crap they're saying, and then I got to counter it and you know, see what's going on, what the truth actually is, you know. Anyway, forget the monologue. Let's just continue to the next thing, okay? Give me a second. Just a moment. Okay. So, Biden got another humiliating slap in the face from the Saudis. So, you know, this statement was published by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And let me just read a section of it to you, okay? The government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia would also like to clarify that based on its belief in the importance of dialogue and exchange of views with its allies and partners outside the OPEC Plus, regarding the situation in the oil markets, the government of the kingdom clarified through its continuous consultation with the U.S. administration that all economic analyses indicate that postponing the OPEC Plus decision for a month, according to what has been suggested, would have had negative economic consequences. So that is Saudi Arabia saying, we don't give a crap that you have your midterm elections next month. We are going to do what we want with our oil when we want. Postponing decision for a month. We are in October. What does that mean, postponing for a month? It means postponing it till after the midterms in the US, which are next month. And the Americans have been asking and trying to get the Saudis to increase oil production for ages, right? So Biden went to Saudi Arabia a few months ago in summer, and he was humiliated then, right? He lied to the press corps. He said, no, I'm not going to meet with MBS. He chopped up one of our journalists, Khashoggi, who worked at the Washington Post and was living in America. The Saudis, they're going to become a pariah when I'm president. He lied, right? He does meet MBS, and he fist bumps him, and then he asks the Saudis to increase oil production so they can bring down global oil prices, because at home, people are paying $3, $4, $5, $6 a gallon in the US. In Europe, the situation is equally dire. And this is, of course, they're going to tell you it's Putin's price hike. But the real culprit is, of course, the sanctions regime imposed on Russia by the West, right? You could literally see the prices going up in real time. And the Saudis told him, piss off, right? They said, no, we're not doing that. And then Biden, he tried a second time, right? And they told him no again. And they did this by cutting oil production, right? So that actually makes things even worse. So remember, he wanted more oil. They said no more oil, actually less oil. They were cutting 2 million barrels per day. Remember, OPEC Plus is basically, OPEC is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. It's based, the headquarters is in Vienna. And the Russians are not a member of OPEC, but they are OPEC Plus, okay? And what basically happened here is the Russians, the Saudis, and all of the major oil producers and exporters got together and said, we're going to lower production by 2 million barrels per day. And that will, of course, give us more revenue because the prices go up. And Biden doesn't want the prices to go up. He wants them down because he's going to get hammered at home. Democrats are going to get hammered at home because of during the midterms. And this is humiliating because Saudi Arabia is not only a U.S. ally, it's more of a client state. And they've had this relationship for 70 years now where, the Americans get, the Americans give the Saudis weapons. They give them security in exchange for the Saudis selling oil exclusively in US dollars. And that gives the dollar its value, especially today. There's no gold standard or anything. So it's the petrodollar. So this is really a huge middle finger to the Americans. And I do think it's special and worth highlighting because it doesn't mean necessarily the Saudis are going to, turn their backs on America forever. I don't know. You never know what happens. The Saudis are only looking out for themselves. But it is significant because they've never done something like this especially when the U.S. is so imperiled. And I want to play you a video because Biden's response to this was basically, you know what, I'm gonna screw you guys. Here he is with Jake Tapper. Listen to what he said.
But we should, and I am in the process when the this House and Senate gets back, they're going to have to. There's going to be some consequences for what they've done with Russia.
What kind of consequences? Menendez says suspend all arms sales. Is that something you'd consider?
I'm not going to get into what I'd consider and what I have in mind, but there will be consequences.
The midterm would.
Quickly, Senator, before I let you go, he continues to fund this war through the sale of oil. With OPEC Plus's surprising decision to slash production by 2 million barrels a day, the president promised a response, a consequential response. What will that be? Will he do, as has been proposed, ban or freeze the sale of arms to Saudi Arabia for a year?
Well, Bianna, the Foreign Relations Committee here in the Senate.
hold on, guys. Hold on. Can you hear me again? Sorry, I think I was muted for some reason. I'm just going to repeat what I said. So you remember when Biden was standing next to Olaf Scholz, the German chancellor, and they were talking about Nord Stream 2, and this reporter asks Biden, well, this is a German and a Russian pipeline, so, I mean, like, what are you going to do if the Russians go into Ukraine and so on? And he gave this, like, veiled threat, which wasn't really veiled, but he said something like, oh, trust me. We'll get rid of it. I'm paraphrasing, but he that's what Biden said, and I'm wondering like what he means here with there will be consequences. Because I initially scoffed at this, but I'm thinking back to the Nord Stream 2, and we obviously know who blew that up, right? I mean, let me just show you this clip from Chris Coons, who's on the Foreign Relations Committee, also giving a veiled threat to the Saudis.
Quickly, Senator, before I let you go, he continues to fund this war through the sale of oil, with OPEC Plus's surprising decision to slash production by 2 million barrels a day. The president promised a response, a consequential response. What will that be? Will he do, as has been proposed, ban or freeze the sale of arms to Saudi Arabia for a year?
Well, Bianna, the Foreign Relations Committee here in the Senate also has a role in that, and I think it's unlikely that we will support any additional arms sales to the Saudis. This was a punch in the gut. For us at this moment to have a long-standing partner like Saudi Arabia help Russia fund their war of aggression against Ukraine was a very bitter disappointment and a big surprise. I think you'll see both the administration and the Senate take action, and one of the most likely actions is to stop any future arms sales.
Quickly.
I mean, at this point, you sold them all the weapons you have. I don't really know what else you could sell them, but okay. I want to show you. This is MBS cousin. Okay, so MBS is Mohammed bin Salman. He's the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, the guy that Biden fist bumped and who chopped up Jamal Khashoggi. This is his cousin. Okay, and look at what he had to say in response to all this.
ردنا على الغرب نفس الكلام هذا نعيده بالإنجليزية. Anybody that challenges the existence of this country and this kingdom, all of us, we are projects of jihad and martyrdom. That's my message to anybody that thinks that he can threaten us. On dit en français, بالفرنسية, celui qui challenge.
He said it in Arabic, English, and French. Speaks good English and good French. Well done. But yeah, so Biden threatened the Saudis, and now MBS cousin is threatening them back. I mean, this is really, it's kind of funny to watch because it's the United States, having their client state misbehave, and you don't see that often. And once again, I don't know if that's going to be permanent or not, but it's definitely a punch in the gut, and it's humiliating. It's absolutely humiliating. And whether you had a Republican or a Democrat in office is irrelevant. They would have done the same thing because the Saudis are seeing the West in decline, and they're just looking at the situation, and they know that China and Russia and the global South and the BRICS, specifically BRICS are the emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. The Saudis want to join the BRICS. So it's not only, okay, we're turning away from the West, we are turning toward the East. So these are very, 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 very significant things. Very significant. That's what I've been telling you since the beginning of the war, man. The ripple effect from Ukraine is global, literally global. So, and of course, we saw other things. I've gone through this with you. The Saudis were discussing oil sales in renminbi, in the Chinese yuan. So that's goodbye petrodollar. And you have the Russians demanding gas payment in rubles, and et cetera, et cetera. So you're seeing a decline of the West, and specifically the US dollar. Although I must say, if we look at the euro and we look at the pound, they've been hit the worst, right? The dollars is still kind of okay compared to them, right? And that's because the Americans will benefit in other ways. They're benefiting from deindustrialization of Europe, and LNG gas sales. Like, all of this is they're stealing all of the European wealth, and cutting Russia out. right? But nevertheless, generally speaking, the U.S. has no power without energy. You know, the Saudis, let me explain something. If you look at the list of top oil producers, the United States is number one, but that doesn't mean anything because the United States consumes more than it can produce. You understand? That's how it is, man. You want to, you know, colonize the planet. You need 800 bases, a lot of oil. So, you know, the Pentagon is the world's biggest polluter, and you need oil to pollute. So even though the U.S. can produce the most, they still need to buy oil from outside to meet their consumption needs. And Saudi Arabia is one of their top suppliers. And it's not even just about consumption, it's about projecting power through the US dollar. And if you have the petrodollar, which is imperiled, even by just a bit, it could be just a bit. I mean, look how sensitive currencies are. The US dollar, again, granted, it's not going to be, you know, overturned from one day to the next. This is still not good. This is still not good. I want to show you also, here's Putin meeting with, is it Sheikh bin Zayed, I think? Yeah, it's him. So from the United Arab Emirates, the UAE. And remember, when we talk about OPEC Plus, you know, we're talking about, well, I mean, the UAE and Saudi Arabia are members of OPEC anyway, right? But Russia is an OPEC Plus, as I told you, and they're accusing the Saudis and the UAE, because remember, Biden wanted both of them to increase oil output. It wasn't just the Saudis. He asked both. So they're accusing them of working with Russia because they're saying that Russia and everyone in OPEC Plus, they're price fixing. And there was even an article here. I'll show you this from Middle East Eye. The United States accused the Saudis of pressuring Bahrain and Oman to take on this oil production cut. Okay, so Bahrain and Oman said on Sunday that the decision by OPEC Plus to cut oil production was made by consensus after Washington claimed Saudi Arabia pressured smaller countries in the cartel into agreeing to the cut. You notice, by the way, how they're starting to call it a cartel because the Saudis are misbehaving. Now it's a cartel, right? Oh, these guys are a regime. Manama released a statement, that's capital of Bahrain, released a statement on Sunday saying that it backed the decision to cut oil production after consensus among all the member states. Quote, the decision was made following specialized technical studies related to global oil market developments. That's Bahrain's special envoy for climate. Oman released a similar statement on Sunday saying that OPEC decisions are based on technical studies and economic considerations. The recent decision of OPEC Plus to cut production is in line with its previous decisions in terms of its reliance on market data and its variables. I should add one thing. Just last line, it says the working mechanisms of the OPEC Plus group require that its decisions be taken by consensus and unanimity of all member states, right? So it's a bit like NATO, if you will. Okay, you want to admit someone, you need unanimous consent, and with OPEC Plus, it's the same thing. It's not just one country deciding for the rest; everybody has to agree. Now, I have no doubt that someone pressured someone. Obviously, this is politics, right? The Russians, there was an accusation, and again, I don't know how true this is, but when the war started, the Iran nuclear deal was like just a few days away from being signed. I know because I'm covering it on the ground, and now it's been like 6-8 months and it's not going anywhere. And there was an accusation, a rumor that the Russians made sure, that Iran didn't sign the deal because if they had signed the deal, Europe and the Americans would now have an alternative supply of gas and oil, right? Iran has 100 million barrels in storage. So just by having Iran back on the global market brings the oil prices down. They have so much in reserve, right? And it would calm markets and prices would go down. So that benefits the Americans and Biden during midterms. And the other thing is, remember, Iran is number 2 in proven natural gas reserves after Russia. So you're starting to get the picture why they screw with Iran? They want the gas and the oil. It's one of the reasons anyway. So there's this idea, this rumor that the Russians pressured Iran not to sign the deal so that Russia would still be pulling the levers and basically have all this control and leverage over markets because it is supplying the Europeans with gas and oil, and they need, so they can't just turn away from Russia to Iran. Now, I don't know if that's true. I don't think that's true because it might be true in part, but there are other considerations. Iran wanted the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, removed from the FTO. FTO is Foreign foreign terrorist organization, it's basically they were sanctioned. So that was one issue that wasn't resolved. And I remember they said, oh, this was the red line, and Iran finally backed down. No, it wasn't a red line, but it was something I wanted. And there were other considerations. So it's not fair or accurate to say that Russia pressured them into not signing it. That's rubbish. I just think it's interesting, though, because they are really screwed now. You know, they have sanctioned Venezuela, so there's no oil from Venezuela. They've sanctioned Russia, so there's no more Russian oil. They've sanctioned Iran, there's no Iranian oil. Now they're screwed. They're screwed. And Biden is now releasing 15 million barrels from the strategic petroleum reserves. Okay, so Biden will announce the release of 15 million barrels of oil from the U.S. Strategic Reserve Wednesday as part of a response to recent production cuts announced by OPEC Plus nations. Okay, so like I said, just to explain this very simply, the idea is that, okay, if there's an oil cut, there's less oil being produced every day. It becomes more scarce and valuable, therefore prices go up. So how do you fix that? You put oil on the market. So that's why the U.S. has a strategic reserve. And they've been doing this for a couple of months now, right? They've been releasing barrels bit by bit. Biden, where was I? So, and he will say more drawdowns are possible this winter as his administration rushes to be seen as pulling out all the stops ahead of next month's midterm elections. The strategic reserve is at its lowest level since 1984 in what the administration called a bridge until domestic production could be increased. The reserve now contains roughly 400 million barrels of oil. Biden will also open the door to additional releases this winter in an effort to keep prices down, but they haven't detailed how much. And Biden says the U.S. government will restock the strategic reserve when oil prices are at lower or at equal to 67 to 72 barrels a barrel. Barrels a barrel. Yeah. When oil prices are at or lower than $67 to $72 a barrel, excuse me. I mean, that's quite ambitious. That is quite ambitious. Remember, when the war started, although I should correct myself, it's not when the war started. It's when the war started in Ukraine, and then the United States sanctioned Russian oil, meaning the rest of the world can't buy Russian oil, lest they be punished by Uncle Sam. That is when oil prices went up to $120 a barrel. 120 barrels a barrel. They went up to $120, and that was the worst since 2008, since the crash, right? So that's very bad. And it's kind of crazy when you think about how it was just a year earlier. Oil was negative. What was the market price? Minus $37 a barrel. Like they would pay you just to take the goddamn oil out of storage from them. Crazy, right? So even though the Americans don't consume that much Russian oil, what was it, like 3%? It still affects markets, right? Because other countries consume it, and if it's sanctioned, they can't buy it, etc. So the prospective loss of 2 million barrels a day, which is 2% of global oil supply, has had the White House saying Saudi Arabia sided with Russian President Vladimir Putin and pledging there will be consequences for supply cuts that could prop up energy prices. The 15 million barrel release would not cover even one full day's use of oil in the U.S., according to the Energy Information Administration. Biden can make a decision on future releases a month from now, as it requires a month and a half for the government to notify would-be buyers. Biden still faces political headwinds because of gas prices. AAA reports that gas is averaging around $3.87 a gallon. That's down slightly over the past week, but it's up from a month ago. The recent increase in prices stalled the momentum that the president and his fellow Democrats have been seeing in the polls ahead of the November elections. Even if voters want cheaper gasoline, expected gains in supply are not materializing because of a weaker global economy. The U.S. government last week revised downward its forecast, saying that domestic firms would produce 270,000 fewer barrels a day next year in 2023 than what they had forecast last month in September. Global production would be 600,000 barrels a day light than forecast in September. So, guys, please tell me in the comments, and I've asked you this before, but wherever you are, even if you're in the States or you are in Europe, doesn't matter where, tell me how much gas costs around your end, because you guys sent me a lot of pictures to my email you're at the pump and you just snapped a picture of the prices. I'm really curious because some of you told me, I read some of them to you guys on the show, right? People in California were paying something like $6 and it was crazy. So I'm curious if it's gone down or if it's gone up. Mr. Shoppin says $3.80 in Kansas. Patrick says $3.75. CH says $6 to $7 a gallon. Christ. Electric Hydra says $6.40 in California. Skullhorse says $1.08 a liter in Australia. Texas, $3.10 a gallon. $5 in Chicago. $3.20 in Florida. $5 to $6 in Seattle. $4 per gallon in upstate New York. Long Beach, $6 to $7 a gallon. Christ. That's insane. Guys, this is scary. This is scary because they are ruining. It's not. Oh, they're the global economy. We don't need to use like the capitalist mindset the whole time, but they're ruining regular people's livelihoods. They're destroying businesses. It's not just about filling up your tank. Fuel prices affect everything. The whole supply chain in any given country depends on fuel and gas. So, there's a real fear that Europe is going to become decimated. Truly, like the steel industry in Germany is on the verge of collapse. I went through these articles with you in France, how the glass makers, they're having to shut down, put people on furlough because they can't afford to keep the furnaces running. They are literally destroying Europe's industry. Russia is not behind this. Russia is the solution to this because the cheap gas is what permitted Europe in the first place to get this growth. It's the nut jobs. I don't want to say nut jobs because they're not nuts. They're evil. It's the corrupt politicians in Brussels and in Washington and Whitehall that are making sure that, Europe is deindustrialized and destroyed just to please and appease Washington and Wall Street. So they are destroying everything, man. The people are going to have to pay exorbitant amounts of money for groceries, for gas, for heating, for electricity. This is a fucking disaster. And on top of that, maybe some nuclear war. I don't know how anyone has a single ounce of trust in these politicians. They are disgusting. Whether Tories or Labor or Democrats, Republicans, they are all the same gang. Look how reckless these people are. They're disgusting. They're going to fucking kill us all. Eight Swiss francs in Switzerland per gallon. $10 a gallon. I'd be riding a bike everywhere. Well, hey, don't tempt fate, man. It's almost there. I want to just say one thing. SN, you know how much gas is in Tehran? 10 cents a liter. A liter, if I'm not mistaken, 1 gallon is 3.8, right? I don't do imperial. 4.5. Okay, so 1 gallon is 4.5 liters. But that is ridiculous. Can I just show you something? I want to just pull up something for you. I want to show you a clip. This is from Professor Marandi, who's great. He posted a clip of how much gas costs. Here, let's take a look. So he's a university professor from Tehran, and look what he said here. Winter has not even arrived, and the situation in Europe is already deteriorating. Iran's foreign ministry should start preparing statements supporting peaceful protests and condemning oppressive European regimes. He's talking about the protests in Paris. People are protesting against the rising prices and the sanctions that are blowing up in their faces. Right? Again, it's funny, huh? If people protest in Iran, it's time for regime change, baby. But if it's in Paris or Germany or, in the West, it's okay. All right. Give me a second. I'm just trying to find that that tweet that he had about gas prices. Look, here it is, okay? He said gasoline in Iran costs between 4 to 9 cents per liter, and there are no shortages. When NATO regimes invade, destroy, or sanction numerous energy-producing countries, they should expect such things to happen, and it isn't even cold yet. So these are more about protests in France. So tensions are increasing in France as the fuel crisis continues. Fights are breaking out at petrol stations. Police cars running out of petrol. Huge lines. Cars in some districts now limited to fill maximum 30 liters, which is 8 gallons, and trucks a maximum of 120 liters or 32 gallons. So, I mean, you see what's going on, right? Like, it's I'm not laughing at this situation at all, but there's a really sick and tragic irony that all of these things that the West has imposed on Iran, on Syria, you know, like the fuel shortages, electricity cuts, the lack of food. This is what sanctions do, right, in Syria. And Syria had so much wheat. It was exporting wheat to Italy, you know? There was more than enough. People did not have bread lines. And now you do have bread lines. And you have people, I asked my cousin, man, you got to wait sometimes 2 days just to get at the gas station, 2 days. That's how bad it is sometimes. And now you're seeing these things in Europe. So everything that Western countries, especially the US and UK, have you know, allowed to transpire and have imposed on victims in Venezuela, you know, these countries that they vilified, it's now coming home to roost. And I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's like justice or something, because the people that are waiting in these lines now, whether it's in Paris or, you know, whether you're paying $7 a gallon in California, these are not the ones who put sanctions on, you know, other countries. They're also civilians, and now they're being screwed. But it's like the Western policies are coming home, you know. And I'm really worried about this, because, you know, when people start getting hungry and, you know, they can't make a living and they're cold, who knows what happens, man. There's going to be a lot of unrest. I really hope I'm wrong, by the way. I really hope I'm wrong. But if these prices keep going up, and so remember, I know the Biden administration want to blame Saudi Arabia, which is funny. You know, they didn't have a problem with Saudi Arabia like chopping up Khashoggi or committing genocide in Yemen. If they cut oil production, that's where we draw the line. Do as you're told. So it's not just Saudi Arabia, right? Like Saudi Arabia is they're just looking out for themselves. They're looking at the situation and saying, we're going to go with these guys, China, Russia, BRICS, because they look like the safer bet. So that doesn't redeem Saudi Arabia of its crimes. But Saudi Arabia is not the culprit here. The culprit are Western sanctions. They thought they're going to screw with Russia, and it's just not happening, man. The Russian ruble is up. The euro and the pound are down. Russians are paying how much? If anyone's in Russia, let me know in the comments, how much are you paying at the gas station? I'm just showing you in Iran, for example, how there's an abundance of oil and fuel and gas, and it costs pennies, right? So, you know, who's going to come out on top in the end? Ultimately, I'm not saying tomorrow morning, but the situation is not looking good in the West. How do you say, Gavarit Ruski? I don't know, man. Here, look, we've got in the comments, 55 rubles per liter. Wow. So basically, let's look up 55 rubles in dollars and see what the exchange rate is. Okay. So we've got 89 cents per liter. And if a gallon is 4.5, then we just got to multiply by 4.5. So that's about $4 a gallon. Is that correct? Did I get that correct? Look, I see Mihend in the comments is spamming over here. So 82 cents a liter, $3 a gallon in Moscow. Well, hey man, $3 is still better than 6, right? Old Forester, thanks for the super chat, said 37% of U.S. petrol reserves gone in 2 years, less than 2 years. Thank you, Biden. I'm worried about this escalation with nuclear war. I'm worried about these rising prices. And I mean, you know that I was already complaining and calling this stuff out when it wasn't happening in Europe and it was happening to the global south, as you know. So the only thing I can hope for is that people in the West realize what's happening now. They and their governments do that to other countries all the time and 10 times worse, and why they should oppose sanctions. Because sanctions are it's economic warfare. It's warfare. And I hope people wake up to that. And I really hope I'm wrong. The last thing we need is nuclear war, and and these prices need to come down. You know, if these people were interested in a diplomatic solution, they would push for it. They're not. They're too busy making money. And when the price of fuel goes up, the price of electricity goes up, they're not affected. You know why? Because you pay for it. There are British members of parliament, MPs, who, you know, they get to claim their energy bill as part of their expenses. What does that mean? That means that British taxpayers have to pay the bills of their members of parliament, even when everything is going up, and, you know, basically they're getting a free ride. You know, they're freeloading off of their expenses. So you, as a citizen or a resident in the UK, you have to pay the higher energy prices. But don't worry, your member of parliament doesn't pay shit. Actually, you pay it too. Let's leave it at that, man. Let's leave it at that, and we'll see how things progress. Again, the most important takeaway is this. The Saudis, UAE, pivoting towards the east. Let's see how long it lasts. Let's see if this is just temporary, or if it actually, you know, if the course is set now for them to pivot completely to the east. Who knows? We'll see. I was thank you for the super chat. This is from Ekram. Ekram says, love from the Netherlands. I found you from TikTok. Ah, that's great. I appreciate that. I have a TikTok where I basically just post my videos, right? So if you want to follow me there, it's at Richard Medhurst. That's my username. I went on TikTok because I saw people were already posting my videos and getting millions of views, and I was like, well, hold on a second, that's me. If it can do well there, all right, then great. And by the way, I'll just remind you guys that if you want, I think this is important. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Don't depend just on YouTube. Please remember that I'm on Rockfin. Rockfin is it's a video sharing website. Here, I'll show it to you. ROKFIN.com/RichardMedhurst. Everything is free. You just have to make an account to sign up. That's it. And you can watch all my videos, all my live streams. It's like a clone of my YouTube, okay? And then I'm also on Odyssey. So odyssey.com/RichardMedhurst. Okay, let me try and pull this up. Dang it, did I type this wrong? Hold on. Oh, okay, sorry. Give me 1 second, I found it. Yeah, odyssey.com/RichardMedhurst. So there's the channel. I'm also on there, and you'll find everything. And I'm also on Rumble, so rumble.com/RichardMedhurst. This is really important that you guys subscribe on the other ones and follow me there, just in case, so we have a backup. Okay? So what is that? We got about 4,500 subscribers on Rumble, 2,000 on Odyssey, and about 20,000 on Rockfin. It's good. It's good, but we gotta keep going. We gotta do more. And obviously, this goes without saying. If you're new to the channel, then consider subscribing on YouTube as well, right? And I'm glad you found the channel. So, guys, all that I ask is that you please continue to share the videos. Whether you just hit the thumbs up or you comment or you watch the video, all of this helps. So we need the channel to grow. And I'm not just saying that because I want the channel to grow. Obviously I do. But the main reason is so we educate people, because today, they don't like dissent, man. And it's not even dissent necessarily. It's just speaking the truth. If you don't repeat the talking points, the crap that comes out of the mainstream media, then, oh, you're this and that. And they try to shut you down and so on. So I hope nothing happens to the YouTube channel, God forbid, but let's just make sure we have backup. That's it. And all of my work is free. I know some people do like deluxe content or whatever. I don't do that. Everything I do is for free. I want it accessible to everyone, which is to my point. And if you want to support the show, if you can, please consider subscribing on Patreon for $1 a month, €1 a month, or whatever amount you would like. I greatly appreciate that, and we're trying to hit the goal of 900. I'm just going to check. I think we have a couple of people who signed up, and we've got some donations on PayPal. I'll read them to you. This one is from Ibrahim. I don't see a note, but thank you, Ibrahim. I appreciate that. And we have one here from, give me a second. This is from Kat Terrell. Hey, Kat Terrell, it's good to see you again. Thanks for coming by. And we have one from Egland. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate that very much. And we have Steven, who just edited their pledge on Patreon and increased it from $7 a month to $15 a month. Thank you very much. I'm going to play a crab dance just for you. And this also goes out to Crazy Puppet, who said, this also helps, I think. It does. Thank you very much. You guys rock. Here's the crab dance.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead. You have fucking crossed the line. Claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome, which is a technical marvel.
والله انت كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro and then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have two number 9s. The number 9 large.
we got him.
I told myself, I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Disgusting! Why you texting? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
Hey. Thank you guys very much. I got another donation from Times Squared. Thank you, Times Squared, for the sticker, which is very kind and says good job. And I'm just looking in case I missed any, because I'm just doing my thing and then I don't see anything. Oh, we got a new member on Patreon. This is Ali. Everybody, please give a warm welcome to Ali, who signed up on Patreon. I appreciate that very much. I'm gonna play a crab dance for you, and there's some more donations and questions you guys send me. I'll read those in a second. This one is from Puppet Masters Fool. Said, keep up the good work. Thank you. And Crazy Puppet says, hi, Angel Claudia. That's nice. Bad Fella says, NAFO sounds like Lincoln Project 2.0. Yeah, it does. I mean, let me just put it this way. Let's say NAFO, this NATO, North Atlantic Fellas organization, let's pretend for a second it's not a PSYOP. and it's a genuine thing that just grew out of nothing on the internet. Guess what? It still sucks. No one likes NATO. End of story. Waka says, if they get elected to Congress, they're already vetted by the state to play the game. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, man, the Capitol is a beautiful building in terms of architecture, but what comes out of it is just as dirty as what comes out of Westminster. Okay? They export genocide, they export evil, exploitation, colonialism, imperialism, sanctions, death, war. It's very, very disgusting. Because these buildings have been hijacked by corporations and lobbyists, right? And so, number one, people in America and in the West have no democracy because their government, so-called representatives, represent corporations, not them. And then the results, the consequences of this is that they export evil. And if you get into a position where you are in the Congress, and again, I'm not like, I don't want to say every single person there is evil and they should be like written off or something. No, but like I'm speaking generally here. You don't get to a position like that, becoming a congressperson in the most powerful country on earth for now, without playing the game. One way or another, you got to compromise. And I don't say that in a good way. Like, I mean, in a bad way. Like, there are going to be bad compromises, right? I'm not talking about, compromising by working across the aisle or whatever crap phrase they use. No. I mean, compromising on your values, on the campaign promises, on your constituents. And we see that compromise with these progressives. You know, they said one thing going into office and then they did another. And this is the problem here. It's not just that they abstain. For example, when they're sending weapons to Israel, which they know are going to be used to kill Palestinian babies and kill Palestinian women and kill Palestinian men and bomb Syria every week. If I know this, they know this. Otherwise, what the fuck are you doing in Congress, bitch? Then you are complicit. Israel can't function without that money. You literally have them by the balls. Well, not really. It's the other way around. But you are enabling them and casting the little votes that are needed to get over the finish line. Consequential votes. So they don't just abstain. No. They are complicit 100%. Their vote. Listen, man, when a bill is you know, it's like split. It's not going to get through. The bill is dead. And you come along and give the 2 or 3 fucking votes that it needs to get through, then your vote is worse than everybody else who voted yes, because, you know, we know Nancy Pelosi is going to vote yes. We know Adam Schiff is going to vote yes. We know all of these scumbags are going to vote yes, Democrat, Republican. We know that. We know they're going to give Israel weapons. We know they're going to give Saudi Arabia weapons. We know they're going to bomb this country, that country, right? Bomb the cradle of civilization, Syria, Iraq. But you are the one who gets to put your foot down and stand up for, you know, your supposed anti-war values, your supposed progressive values, your supposed, you know, green values. And then you not only abstain, but you go and fucking support it. You're worse than them. You are the worst. You are the worst. You meaning all of these progressive clowns. I hate this word so much. These people are neoconservatives, okay? They're fucking neoconservatives. And I'm not into labels and shit, but you have to label this because it's a distinct American foreign policy that has been alive since the Reagan years. You know, that, America's the best. We know what's good for everyone. And we're going to use weapons and sanctions, all our soft and hard power to go and fuck with other countries and kill people. Right? And again, this is not because people in America want that. It's because corporations want that. And so you are working for corporations now. They are much worse. Will Evans says, Elon Musk is best friends with the U.S. government and Pentagon. This is all just a big troll from him. These crooks don't want peace. By the way, great show as always, Richard. Thank you, Will. I appreciate that, and I agree with you. I mean, I don't know Elon Musk, and, you know, I don't know or care. I'm looking at the actions here. And this guy... You know, let me put it this way. I told you space is great. Space exploration is great. But it's not only space exploration, right? His companies are giving... they're working... I want to say with, but it's not just with. They are a part of the military-industrial complex. This guy's the richest man on earth. He's doing work with the Pentagon. That's the fucking military-industrial complex. It's the fusion of state and corporations, right, in pursuit of war profits. So, you know, I think there's kind of like this whole. I know people like to think, oh, he's such a brilliant entrepreneur and blah blah blah. Yeah, I'm sure he has good ideas, whatever. But the behavior from, you know, this enabling the U.S. war machine, the Western war machine. How do you reconcile that? He said this tweet about like his idea for peace between Ukraine and it was good because it actually takes into account what people in Donbass want, you know, and referendums observed and organized by the UN. So it's as neutral as you can possibly get, right? Hypothetically, the UN, and it seeks to accomplish things through diplomacy. So on paper it looks great, but then literally a few days you turn around and say, you know what? Now I'm going to keep funding the war for it. What? Operating range is absolutely oh yeah, this is from the last live stream about the nukes on the Japanese, just to flex, in front of the Soviets. Red Zik, thank you for the sticker. I appreciate that very much. And I think that was everything. Oh, we got some more donations. This is from Panda Strike. Said, you miss my elbow. Yes. Yes, oh boy. Awfully good to see you again, my beloved Candy Strike. Yes, how go things for you? Yes. Those bloody Soviets. Sultan, thank you for the donation. Sultan said, keep up the good work. I appreciate that very much. Thank you for the support. You're very, very kind. So, guys, again, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. And if you're not new, subscribe on the other ones, Odyssey, Rumble, Rockfin. It's good to have a backup, and hit the bell icon. Hit the... Candy Strike says, you made my day, boy. Yes, it's rather good of you. Yes. Jolly good show. Ungovernable asks, when is the next stream? But I have to go back into the city. I haven't the foggiest. But I'll keep you in the loop. Yes, oh boy. Very good. So, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in, and consider supporting the show. I appreciate it very much. Take care. Ma salame. Bye-bye. In the last couple of months, you've seen them sanction Russia, and what has that done? It's driven the value of the ruble up, the euro and the dollar are down. Russia has made even more money than it was making before because the Europeans are still buying the oil. The rest of the world is still buying the oil, and the price of oil and the price of gas have gone up. So even if Russia is selling less oil and less gas, the fact that the price has gone up means that Russia is making more, there's more revenue, okay? So they've come up with a new plan. This is their new brilliant plan. The crude cap applying from December 5th, and the refined products to follow from February 5th, 2023. If you want to go and move Russian oil, you need to get a ship, and you need to get that ship and the cargo insured. The idea is that they will refuse to move your Russian oil unless you bought it at a price per barrel that is below this threshold. I can already tell you one thing, the Chinese are never going to go along with this price cap. A price cap on Russian oil without the price of oil skyrocketing. It's just not happening, man. The EU now wants to replace Russian gas with Israeli gas, right? There's nothing better than some stolen Lebanese gas. And the Israelis are trying their best to block the nuclear deal because, you know, if sanctions are lifted on Iran, Iran is free to sell its oil and gas. Remember, Iran has the biggest gas reserves in the world after Russia. And what do the Israelis do? They straight up just send a giant ship to start extracting the gas. I mean, this thing is a behemoth. You know, Nasrallah, who is the Secretary General of Hezbollah, he threatened them that if they extract any gas before they solve the maritime border dispute, there's going to be a huge response. If Israel messes with Lebanon and starts extracting gas before this issue has been resolved, they're going to strike the Israeli gas rigs. And no company is going to want to come anywhere near that because it's a war zone then. Let me show you this opinion piece I found in The Guardian. The ruble is soaring and Putin is stronger than ever. Our sanctions have backfired. Wow. You don't say. Took you 5 months to realize that? Western sanctions against Russia are the most ill-conceived and counterproductive policy in recent international history. The reality of sanctions on Russia is that they invite retaliation. Putin is free to freeze Europe this winter. He has slashed supply from major pipelines such as Nord Stream 1 by up to 80%. The chief beneficiary is none other than Russia, whose energy exports to Asia have soared, driving its balance of payments into unprecedented surplus. Man, seriously, did I not say exactly all of this months ago? Perhaps, after all, we should stick to war. I don't agree with everything in this article, but the premise that sanctions have failed, absolutely. I mean, this was clear from the beginning, man. They're attacking India again for buying Russian oil. Now, again, think of how the United States and the West are. They thought, okay, we're going to sanction Russia, and then Russia's economy is going to be destroyed. And now Russia is moving more amounts of oil towards the east than it did before. And India is buying this up at a discount. The Ukrainian foreign minister, look what he says to India. He says that every barrel of Russian oil delivered to India has quote-unquote Ukrainian blood on it. They're shipping Russian oil to the United States via India. They just send it to India, and then in India they mix it in with something else, right? So chemically speaking, it's not exactly 100% the same as it came in from Russia. Western European countries and the United States want to go lecture India for buying the same oil as them. The West still consuming Russian oil, and then they have the nerve to lecture India for doing the same. Europe needs a gas supplier. Israel, I mean, no matter what it wants to do, it's not just about the money. Let me explain this, man, because the Israelis, for them, it's not that they need the money desperately like Lebanon. They want people to legitimize them, to validate them. They want to have the prestige of being, oh, we're an official energy supplier to the European Union. Remember, when you are supplying resources that are so crucial, like oil, like gas, you know, this gives you power. It is power. And they want to kneecap Iran in every way, whether it's gas, whether it's oil, whatever it is, whether it's foreign investments. Remember how many companies lost billions that they invested in Iran? There is a serious will to cooperate with Iran, but the Israelis hate that. They want to be the number one in the region. Gennady Gatilov, who is Russia's permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva, that just means that he's an ambassador. He said that the world has changed and the UN will never be the same as it was before. These UN votes, remember, there were multiple resolutions to condemn Russia, to ask Russia to end the invasion and so on. India that didn't do it, China that didn't do it, and only South Africa condemning Russia. That's very huge. They want to deal with Russia. Doesn't mean they like the war, but they're not going to go and like cancel Russia. Although overwhelmingly those countries at the UN did vote to condemn Russia, the ones that didn't have very powerful economies or vast resources, or both. Of course, that includes Iran as well, Iraq. They all refuse to condemn Russia. I think I understand what he's saying, that, oh, the UN will never be the same. I get the feeling it's the same with the European Western society, the economy. This is all going to go down the drain. A lot of people are going to get hurt, which is very unfortunate.